Happy Monday, everybody. Welcome to the Sean O'Connell Show. Happy to have you with us. That's always the case here on a Monday. Tune in on YouTube. And if you do, you can look at the cool Big Willie's neon sign over my right shoulder, your left-hand side of the screen. Big Willie's brings you the Sean O'Connell Show today and every day. Utah's Sports Bar, 1717 South Main. Lunch specials going on for either $14 or $15. You're going to get a big meal, a delicious craft meal, and you can accompany that, if you feel so inclined, with one of their incredible drink specials that are going on every single day. Just make sure you tell them that the Sean O'Connell Show sent you, and Patrick and the company over there, they're going to hook you up because these are actual friends of mine at Big Willie's. The food is great. The company is wonderful, and if you're so inclined to sit and watch Little League World Series, for example, perfect day, perfect place to go spend your afternoon watching Metro, Southwest, Great Lakes, Western, and, of course, International Little League World Series teams. The Metro region is about to have their first pitch. Let's see, 10 to 12-year-olds. Modified double elimination format, 6-inning games. The field is 2/3 of a Major League Baseball field size for anyone out there. That's actually, I've never known that off the top of my head. The Metro region does include most of New England and New York, Connecticut, etc. James,
did I remember right from last year, OC, that you are anti-Little League World Series, or is that someone else?
I'm probably as close to anti-Little League World Series as you can get, and not because of the kids, and not because of the game, because baseball for me has become like the fourth of the four pro major sports, where I'm like, yeah, I'll watch baseball on occasion
when the Twins are good. Maybe.
When the Twins are good, which may never actually happen again at a world championship, at a World Series level. The reason I get fatigued very rapidly on the Little League World Series thing is because parents have taken over all of this stuff. And it's not just the Little League World Series. This is like the crown jewel of the I'm going to insert myself into the kids sort of realm, and I'm going to overspend. I'm going to force my kid to care more about baseball at age 12 than he probably should. We're going to do the travel team thing. They're going to have the best equipment all the time.
We're going to throw way too many curveballs, by the way.
We're going to have breaking balls and specialized equipment and all that stuff. I heard Scott Mitchell talking about this on his show, like, his kind of introduction to sports. And I think for most of us come from normal human families where you just like fall backwards into the thing that you end up liking, right? When I was this age, when I was 10, 11, 12, baseball was it, man. I didn't get to start playing tackle football until I was 10, and I guess kind of got good at it eventually, not really, but baseball.
You weren't doing MMA at 8 years old?
I was not, although a lot of people do that now, which is
Do
bananas.
they really?
Yeah, there's like
Why should I be surprised? But I am a little surprised that it starts that young.
Yeah, it's actually really crazy. But, I mean, it's not that crazy as long as it's conducted responsibly.
Yeah.
Like there's safety equipment, you can do amateur rules, which eliminate some of the big impacts and things like that. But the reason the Little League World Series gets a side eye from me is because you just want kids to be able to be kids. And when these teams are like touring around all year long doing elite competition stuff, I'm like, man, I don't know if that's the right thing with Little League sports. Again, it's really an I don't know, and it's probably says more about me than it does about anything else, because I just now have kids that are aging into like all right, let's find what they want to do, what they're good at, and see how dedicated they want to be to this. My oldest is only 6, and so she's done soccer, jiu-jitsu, gymnastics, swimming, T-ball, and has taken exactly zero of those things seriously yet. Maybe all of these kids are like, Mom, Dad, you have to put me on this travel team where I spend 9 months of my year playing baseball and caring only about baseball. Maybe it's the kids, but I don't think it is.
Yeah. Yeah, I also wonder, are these Little League coaches getting too much shine and too much money for what it is, right?
Do they get paid?
I don't know. Like maybe
they're absolutely got to be volunteer coaches. Right?
They're probably volunteer. Maybe I'm totally off base in saying that, but the money thing, maybe to Williamsport, to these regional sites, makes you go, really? You're using a bunch of kids to make a bunch of money too. Like I don't know, that part in the back of my head, that's not in front of mind as I'm watching this, but in the back of my mind I'm like, yeah, I'm not so comfortable with that idea, and maybe I'm completely off base. Maybe it's not. Maybe no one's. Maybe it's really just covering the expenses and not much more.
How long until the Little League World Series participants create a class action
house settlement type
action suit against ESPN and are just hey, you made a lot of money off me when I was 11 and I got nothing.
See, that's the tough part of being like uncomfortable with the amount of money that's being made off of these kids. Is that I'm also uncomfortable with mass litigation to bring justice to it. Like there's no right answer to it. OC I guess is the way to I guess is where I land. It's just I guess I just got to be, and those of us that think this way just got to live with being uncomfortable with this.
All right, Ari Temkin is going to join us on the show. We've got a lot to discuss. Scott Mitchell is going to join us on the show. We're going to have a little bit of fun talking about some more overs and unders. We spent probably way too much time on 3 different numbers last week, but we haven't even scratched the surface on really all the numbers you can put together to project for this upcoming football season. Camp is underway right now. You are only going to get a certain amount of information from camp. Media availability is between 0 and 0 when it comes to watching practice and even the interview periods. I mean, we get players for now 2 minutes apiece. So you get 5 or 6 questions, depending on how long-winded the response and how long-winded the question is. And then, of course, you get a little bit more information from the coaching staff. But by design, it is now a lot closer to the vest than it used to be. And I think it's only going to get more and more that way as the years go by. It has been that way, and the lockdown will continue because of mass paranoia in the coaching world, which I point out many times a year, and I will point out again, is hilarious because the NFL preseason is underway right now, and NFL training camps are underway right now, and you as an NFL fan, you can just drive to wherever your team does training camp and sit there and watch practice with your camera out and everything.
Yeah, do they even charge for that, or maybe they charge a little bit?
It's like a nominal fee. For a lot of people, it is the thing they can afford to go to.
Yeah,
because
so way less than game tickets.
Way less than game tickets.
And it's just that, like, that's you watch Hard Knocks and you see like the stands, the little rafters that they put up, the risers, whatever. The temporary stanchions that they put up to fit people in, thousands of people in, they're always full.
Yeah, they're full.
You're like, and I assume that's the entire practice, right? Or is it only maybe it's only certain hours of when they're practicing? Like
my experience with it is that you can watch that day of practice.
It's just, but yet in college football coaches, lower level, let's remember you are a lower league compared to the NFL. It's a state secret. Everything about practice is a state secret, except for we're required to allow media to ask some questions.
Which I'm totally fine with limiting, right? I am. If you're like, hey, we're installing a new opening series. We're installing a new red zone package, whatever. I don't want the media to watch that. I don't want fans to watch that. All right, fine. That's fine. If that's the thing. The idea, and by the way, I'm not pointing fingers at anyone because Utah is far from being alone in this effort and in this regard.
And believe it or not, there are even more closed down, tight-knit, whatever words you want to say, practices than the University of Utah.
I mean,
in this state even.
The University of Utah is actually pretty cool about, they do their best. The sports information staff and the coaching staff, to an extent, does their best to try to meet people halfway. We'll get the coaches on and have a conversation with you as often as we can. All right, They're busy, and the coaches, when you do get to talk to them, are usually really cool about it, right? But it's just wild that there's such a thirst for any kind of information, and maybe it's playing hard to get. Maybe less is more, right?
Yeah.
And the fans, come game day, are so starved and so thirsty for it that they're just like, yes, versus Cal Poly, we'll sell the place out. That's all I want to see. Give me some real football now.
Yeah, I mean, counterpoint to that, though, is this could be a creative revenue stream. You're not going to make a killing off of it, but you could look at what do NFL teams charge to let fans watch. $5 a head.
James, I'm telling you that if you had an exclusive, not even exclusive, if you had a streaming all access pass where just training camp.
Yeah, the Hard Knocks style for every team.
It's $50 to watch training camp. You know how many Ute degenerates would be streaming that? How many BYU degenerates would be streaming that?
Aggies. Aggies fans would watch Utah State training camp.
You know
Absolutely.
Utah State needs it more than anyone else does because they don't have the funds necessary. Bronco, here's $1 million idea for you. Probably
maybe you need to talk to your guy Jan.
Bronco, here's $100,000 idea for you. Just have a couple of cameras set up. Have some student, media person set up cameras on, the same stuff, all 22 that you're watching, and then a couple of on-the-field angles, and just allow people to stream that bad boy. And it's a subscription service that goes right into your NIL fund.
Edit the crap out of it if you want and air it later. Edit it as much as you want. Do Hard Knocks style that you don't see everything in Hard Knocks, obviously.
Especially
but it's still great content and thousands, millions of people still want to see it.
The idea that there are best-kept secrets that are going to change the outcome of these games is, I think, a misnomer. I just don't believe. Now, if you wanted to lock things down before a transfer portal window opened because you don't want certain teams, and we talked about this in the spring, there are teams, and Utah State was among them, that was they had to have a conversation about whether or not they were going to allow even high school coaches who attend their camps to watch practice. Because if that high school coach knows Kyle Whittingham or Kalani Sitake or Lincoln Riley or whoever, and that guy is just like, hey, dude, they've got this number 98 for Utah State is a way better player than should be living in Logan. You guys need to get this dude, right? And I know that there are Utah fans who feel like it's a double-edged sword because the amount of access that you got to Utah Spring was very, very limited, and the conversation and information you got out of Utah Spring football was very limited, and yet some people think that it was excessive and you lost your number one wide receiver in camp because of it. I don't put it on – I don't point the finger in that regard. I don't think Kyle Whittingham saying, yeah, he's our best receiver in camp right now. I don't think it has anything to do with him leaving. I just don't. Because you have to remember, we all have to remember that coaches have relationships with players through their initial recruiting process that don't just evaporate and go away, right? If you're a guy who was recruiting X, Y, or Z from JUCO, from high school, from whatever to your school, and you were like, you know what? I really like this kid. At the end of the day, we didn't have a scholarship for him. Too bad. Or, we really like this kid. At the end of the day, he decided to commit to Michigan instead of us. It's not like the next year you forgot that you really liked the kid. And it's not like the next year the kid forgot that he almost committed to you instead. I know that there were a lot of Utah fans who were very discouraged and very bothered by the fact that the number 2 athlete recruit, according to multiple recruiting services, Fremont High School, son of Ben Moa, Celesi Moa, committed this past weekend to Tennessee. All right? So that means Utah is now 0 for 3 on Ben Moa's kids. All right? So far, Ben Moa's kids have not stayed at the school they initially committed to. So I'm not as discouraged as you are probably. He was very close to committing to the University of Utah. Tennessee gets to throw around a little extra incentive, if you know what I'm saying, to get guys to go to their school. We've seen some of the insane numbers that Tennessee is able to throw around.
And listen, you don't be defeatist. You shouldn't have a defeatist attitude, but also in the back of your mind, if you lose to a top program in the SEC or the Big Ten, you kind of have to go, which Tennessee is not Alabama or Georgia, but it is a top program. It's become a top program in the SEC again. You, in the back of your mind, you got to go. You got to kind of shrug your shoulders and go, well, at least we didn't lose. At least we didn't lose to Arizona State.
If you lost out to BYU
or BYU,
which you did on a previous MOA commit,
yeah,
then you're like, dang, dude, I don't want to like.
That feels a lot worse, and you should take that a lot more. You should take that a lot harder than losing to Tennessee or Ohio State.
There were a lot of teams when Nico Iamaleava committed to Tennessee that were just like, oh my gosh, how did we lose out on that? That's devastating. I had so many eggs in that basket. Darn it. We should feel this way about everyone who doesn't commit to Utah and everyone who does commit to Utah. You have a temporary stay. If you're here for the short term at Utah, great. Let's see what you can get. Let's see what that relationship can become. Let's see how good you can be right now. And let's hope that you stay for 3 years or 4 years or 5 years.
2 even. Like, give us a couple of years at the very least.
If you don't come to the University of Utah, I wish you luck wherever you end up. And I hope that the relationship, that the almost commitment is something that you say, all right, well, if it doesn't work out at Tennessee, if it doesn't work out at Alabama, if it doesn't work out at BYU, we'll see you on the flip side.
Because, listen, like, obviously we would like the Big 12 to be equal footing with the Big 10 and SEC. That's obvious. That's probably not going to happen, but that's the hope. That's the hope you got to sell yourself on someday, right? But you do have a bit of an advantage being the perceived lesser conference because of what you're talking about, these top nationally ranked recruits, 5 stars, 4 stars, whatever, that are being considered, and they end up going to Tennessee, they end up going to Penn State, they end up going to LSU, even though they were really close to going to your school, University of Utah. If they end up getting too shell-shocked and they're like, or they're stuck, they're buried behind a couple other really good players at their position, it is a bit of an advantage to be like, hey, to be in the University of Utah's position to say, hey, like, maybe you're not SEC caliber, but if you are borderline SEC caliber, you ought to be able to kill it in the Big 12. I mean, it's a weird, bizarro world kind of way to look at it, but it can be an advantage on like the secondary recruiting out of the transfer portal.
The other thing about it for me when it comes to recruiting is, and I feel like I play it down the middle because you won't see me trying to dunk on anyone when a guy that Utah really wanted does commit to the University of Utah. You won't see me be like celebrating that excessively. I'll do what I always do. Polite little golf clap. All right, let's see what he can do. Let's work. Let's see what he's got. Because the reality of the situation is that in every single training camp, in every single spring football training camp, and in every single fall football training camp, something surprising happens on both ends of the spectrum. You have a guy come in who this coaching staff was high on. I really like this Cole Bishop kid. Wait until you see what this guy's able to do. And he's not anyone that you were celebrating about when he signed. He's not, right? We get hung up on these ratings and we get hung up on these star evaluations and we say, oh my gosh, you have to get this guy. Now, the Moa thing for me, it's like a little bit more of a twisting knife because I know Ben. I know the dad. And I know he loved his time at the University of Utah. He is an awesome dude. He's tough as they come. He's still doing bare-knuckle fighting, by the way, at like 45 years old. He's an absolute – he's a monster of a human being, right?
Good for him.
And I know – I guess I don't know, but because of how well I know him and what he is made of, I'm like, I want some of that. Oh, and by the way, his wife is a member of a family who I played with her brother at Utah and at Weber State, and the other brother got a cup of coffee in the NFL and was a big-time player at BYU, much like Ben was at the University of Utah. So both mom and dad in that family have like really excellent football pedigrees. So because I know all that, I'm just like, man, I'd really like to see one of these Moa kids end up at the University of Utah. But I'm still not going to be like, oh no. And I'm also, if Celeste Moa had committed to the University of Utah, I would have talked exactly this long about it. And I would have been like, all right, that's great. Let's see what he can do. He's recruited as an athlete. He could be a wide receiver. He could be a running back. Most likely he'd end up as a defensive back at a place like the University of Utah, or maybe if he hits another growth spurt, he ends up being a linebacker. And then on we go. Where Utah is at, where every Big 12 school is at, to the point you just made, James Peterson, right now, in the recruiting landscape is, you just have to be better at the job than these Tennessee guys and these Alabama guys and these USC guys. You just have to be a better coach in the Big 12 Conference, and Utah has been equipped with that for how many years now? And by the way, it is the staple of Kyle Whittingham heading into his 21st season as a head coach. It is the staple of his career, talent recognition and development. You have to be better at that at Utah than Ohio State has to be. Ohio State gets to pick from the top of the pile. Notre Dame gets to pick from the top of the pile. Utah never has, and in my estimation, forgive me for saying this, Ute fans, probably never will be picking from the top of the pile. Spencer Fano is the top of the pile now, but he wasn't when he was coming out of high school. Caleb Lomu was actually a little bit closer to the top of the pile, I believe, than Spencer was, and still wasn't the top of the pile, right? We've had a couple of those guys that were homegrown prospects, that were in the state of Utah type prospects, right? We've had a couple of those top of the pile type recruits. And they haven't committed to BYU and they haven't committed to Utah. Those guys, the Penei Sewells, go elsewhere. And it's going to be some time Utah or BYU is going to have to get an invitation to the Big Ten Conference, to the SEC Conference, to the Super Conference that ends up being birthed of those conversations before those individuals, especially now in this new system of pay for play, before those individuals say, all right, I'm coming, I'm going to stay at the hometown school. There's just an allure. There's a pull when you've got a 4 or a 5-star evaluation next to your name. As much as this state is fantastic, it's so wonderful. It's the same thing you get with Hawaii kids, right? You could not, if I lived in Hawaii now as a 41-year-old man, you could not get me to leave there for pretty much anything, right? But the kids who grow up there, and that's all you know growing up, what do they want? They want to get off the rock. They want to get the bleep out of Laie, or they want to leave Honolulu. They don't want to be in Maui anymore. They want to see what else there is out there, and that's why Utah's been able to get those guys. BYU's been able to get those guys. Why now Alabama and Ohio State and Tennessee and Florida are getting those guys, because Ron McBride and Lavelle Edwards and company, they started this pipeline that slowly spread to the east, and everyone's just like, oh, my gosh, look at this. Look what they have out there. It's the biggest mystery in the world that the University of Hawaii is not a football powerhouse. Have you seen? We were talking. Who was I talking about this with last? Oh, I was in Atlantic City, and our cage side
another
reporter,
great beachfront.
Oh, terrible. our cage side reporter James is a Texas A&M graduate. All right, she ran track at Texas A&M, and there's friendly trash talk back and forth because she cares about college sports, and of course I do. And she's just like, oh, A&M's going to be great. I'm like, A&M's never going to be great. They can throw as much money as they want at whatever they want. They're never going to be great. And she's just like, and she lives in Houston, Texas. And she's like, Texas produces the best talent. I was like, actually, per capita, Texas doesn't do as good of a job as you think in producing elite level talent. It's Florida's number one, and Utah's actually a lot higher than you think. And so we looked it up. I'm sitting there. I've got this supercomputer in my pocket at all times now. And I'm like, oh, let me just look it up. Let me refresh myself on per capita who's producing the most talent. And I look, and on the list at like number 6, it's a bunch of SEC territory type places. And then there's Hawaii. And I'm like, how is Hawaii not good at football?
Even if the situation's the same, where everyone's got Moana fever, I want to see how far I can go.
Well done.
There.
Yeah.
I did there. They want to leave. They want to get to the mainland. They want to spread their legs. The leftovers ought to make the University of Hawaii really good, right? The guys who the holdovers are like, you know what? I actually want to stay home and go to the University of Hawaii. Those guys ought to be talented enough. The University of Hawaii ought to be able to capitalize on those guys enough to be a much better program. But it's very strange.
And you see what happens every time, like a good coach ends up there for any length of time, right?
Yeah.
When June Jones was there, he had Hawaii up to like a top 10 team. And then, of course,
who was the quarterback? I know Colt Brennan at one time, but you had Jimmy Chang, I think, was the guy. Timmy Chang, who was the first time I noticed that June Jones could coach football and like the air raid in particular. It was Timmy at quarterback. So yeah, he had it really rolling.
Anyway, I never intended for this segment to go in the direction of Hawaii, but what I'm saying is, for Utah, right, to build that fence that now USC's trying to build again and not let any of the top flight talents out of Southern California get away from USC, they've been able to do a better job of that because of money. And Utah, I don't know if they're going to be able to do it because of money, right? We've discussed this with Spence. We've discussed this with Scott. We've discussed this all over the place, that there's such an outsized influence on money now. So Utah is going to have to continue to be one of the best, if not the best, coaching staffs in the conference at finding guys that are unsung, that are like, wow, he's a pretty decent wide receiver as a college player. And Kyle Whittingham has this ability to see the future and go, actually, he's not a wide receiver at all. He is a defensive end who's going to go down and eventually be part of the Ring of Honor at the University of Utah.
I feel like there's a social media campaign in there. Drum roll. He is, drum roll, please.
Here's what we need.
An offensive lineman.
When Kyle Whittingham retires from coaching at the University of Utah, here's what he's going to do. Here's what I think he should do. All right? Just every January, Kyle Whittingham evaluates the crop of guys who are going to be high school seniors. We just send him a bunch of film, and we say, all right, What's he going to be in college? And Kyle Whittingham just watches, and he's like the Oracle or something from The Matrix. And we just wait. Eventually, a hush falls over the room. Coach Witt stirs and says, he will be. I don't know why I'm making him sound like he's 100 years old, but all right, just go with me on the visual. He will be an all-pro offensive tackle. Now, Coach, what are you talking about? He plays quarterback right now.
He takes a hit from his oxygen tank based
He's
on
6'5".
that voice.
I know he's 6'5", but he's got a big arm. He's a quarterback right now. He will be an all-pro offensive tackle.
I don't need to explain myself.
And then somebody's got to give the kid a scholarship to play offensive line, right? He's got future sight when it comes to football. We'll do some over-under numbers. We'll talk a lot more about the Hall of Fame presentation this weekend. There was some good sound from it. And a couple of questions have emerged for me from the Hall of Fame class of 2025 and who becomes eligible next year in 2026. We'll get to all of it on the Sean O'Connell Show on a Monday. It's Utah's number one sports talk, ESPN 700, 92.1 FM. Welcome back to the Sean O'Connell Show. We got 31 days of football brought to you by Baskin-Robbins. Great football Monday through Friday. We got classic calls every Saturday at noon leading up to the season opener. Our next one will be the Utah State game from last September. Just whetting your appetite for Utah football. Going to the text line, 877-353-0700. 1624, you're telling me it's okay to lose a recruit to a worse school, but it's not okay to lose a recruit to a worse school, but it's okay because they're in the SEC or the Big Ten. Sounds like a loser's mentality to me. Look, it's always okay to lose a recruit. Here's a spoiler alert for you. Here's breaking news. It's always okay to lose a recruit. You know why? Because that's the game. That's how recruiting is. Every school in the country loses a recruit that they want. Every year.
Oh, but OC,
multiple.
But OC on signing day, they always say we got everybody we wanted.
Here's the thing. Recruiting is, as we have talked about ad nauseum on this show, is such an inexact science. We actually have very little idea who's going to end up working out. The recruiting services, the evaluations, the camps, it's getting better and better. It's getting to be more accurate than it used to be. But if you go back, just do this exercise. We've done it before, so I'm not going to do it today. Go to whatever you think is the best recruiting service, okay? And go back as far as their archives go, which most of them is like the ubiquity of the internet. It's about the early 2000s, all right? And just take the top, 10 guys and see how many of them landed in college football. How many of them actually ended up being great football players in college football? If you go back to 2004, it's 4 of the top 10. Or, go bigger than top 10. Go top 25. It's 10 of the top 25 guys ended up being really good college football players, that's a pretty good hit rate, right? If we're talking baseball, that's a Hall of Fame career. Now you're in 2025, and the top 25 guys, probably 16 of them are going to end up being really good college football players at least. I bet 8 of them make it to the NFL. But guess what? That still means that you're looking at double digits that are maybe not going to be what you thought they were going to be. And someone out there was literally crying in their Cheerios over the fact that 17-year-old kid decided to do something else with his life than you thought was the best choice. I promise you, it's okay to lose recruits. It's okay to lose 5 of them in every damn cycle. What matters to you and what matters to me is whether or not the coaching staff can put together a roster that is competitive, that is going to win you games in the fall. Winning recruiting battles is wonderful for exactly that, winning recruiting battles.
It's great publicity. Especially while games aren't being played, that's when these things are happening typically. I mean, there's a fair amount that happen in season 2, but a lot of the things that make huge national news or when games are not being played, it's a great way for your program to stay relevant while they're not on the field. But that's just gravy. It's not the end-all, be-all.
It's going to be the most fascinating study. Zoom out from your University of Utah obsession, all right? Because we all have it. This is the time of year where it really ramps up, as it should really ramp up this time of year. This is where it gets extra aggressive for you. Zoom out from Utah and cast the map focus on South and not to BYU, all right, because that gets too personal for people also. Look at Arizona State, all right, since we're somehow on this train I didn't think we were going to get on today. Arizona State won 4 recruiting battles at the tail end of the Herm Edwards era. Everyone was leaving. Nobody wanted to be part of that mess, all right? And then Kenny Dillingham gets elevated and becomes the head coach at Arizona State University and is a dude who's 34 years old at the time, who has a great reputation as a coordinator, is incredibly enthusiastic about being back in his home market and wanting to turn the sleeping giant that, much like Hawaii we just talked about in the last segment, it absolutely makes 0 sense that Arizona State is not a bona fide football powerhouse. Every year for the last 30 years should have been the case. It's a great place to live. It's a great athletic department on campus. It's a great campus, period. It's easy to recruit to. A little too hot for me, but at least it's a dry heat. There's just nothing not to like about Arizona State. They've got a good history of guys who have been Sun Devils and then moved on into the NFL. And nobody's been able to capture the magic until it seems like this guy, Kenny Dillingham. But let's watch and see how it plays out. Because what he did last year is he overperformed with a bunch of guys who everyone else had overlooked. aside from the Tyson kid, the wide receiver who's back this year, aside from Levitt, who had a bunch of good offers, including Utah wanted him, right?
He was also Levitt was a transfer, right? Did he not start? Or
Correct.
am I thinking of someone else?
State.
Yeah. So Michigan State's a good
Big Ten program,
good place to end up. It's not Michigan or Ohio State out of the Big Ten or Penn State, but it tells you how highly touted he was out of high school.
And they had his name's escaping me. One offensive lineman, maybe one defensive lineman, one safety. They had one guy in each position room last year that you were just like, okay, yeah, that guy could be a starter anywhere. The rest of that team was a bunch of dudes that nobody was crying when you lost that recruiting battle. They just weren't. And they ended up
including Cam Scatteraboo, by the way.
Cam Scatteraboo twice over.
Yeah, he was their best player by far, it looked like last year, but he is not one that teams thought could play anywhere.
And by the way, apparently he's just destroying people in New York Giants camp right now.
Good for him.
Which is so fantastic to hear. Coming out of high school, Cam Scatteraboo had basically one option to go to He's like the Sacramento State Eric Weddle story. Where it's just like, it was the best offer I got, so that's what I took. And then, even though he was an All-American level producer at Sacramento State and was a huge piece of why a team that used to be a laughingstock at Sacramento State, with the right coach, a guy we know well in Troy Taylor, suddenly became nationally relevant at that level. And even though Cam Scatteraboo was like the best part of that, why didn't Alabama or Auburn or Michigan or Ohio State or Florida come get Cam Scatteraboo?
Or like anybody else in the Big 12.
Why didn't Utah go get Cam Scatteraboo?
You mentioned they have a tie to the head coach.
Why didn't BYU? Why didn't BYU be like, oh, the Scatteraboo kid's good? Because it's an inexact science. And even though the dude had proven it on film, at a lower level, yes, but he had proven it on film over and over and over and over and over and over and over again. There's still this resistance to this. I know exactly what I'm doing, and those guys, I want the better raw material. He's a little too short. He doesn't look like most running backs look,
Not very elusive. Like, he's not going to be able to run over people at our level like he did at FCS.
He does that weird helmet twitch thing. He's not for me, right?
Yeah.
Twice. Everyone in the country got it wrong on Cam Scatteraboo. Every college football team in the country, except for Arizona State, got it wrong on Cam Scatteraboo. And guess what? He ended up being one of the best players in all of college football last year. He was the second best running back in the land behind Ashton Genty, who was this close to winning a Heisman Trophy. That's how good Cam Scatteraboo was. And there were still hundreds of coaches and many, 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 many thousands of college football fans who were just like, oh, I don't care if he goes to Arizona State. Now watch Arizona State and see if what Kenny Dillingham does with dudes who are highly thought of, who have maybe a little bit less of a chip on their shoulder, who are a little bit better compensated. Now let's see if those guys end up overperforming expectations. Let's find out if those guys end up developing at the rate that the previous class did. Let's find out if Arizona State is the developmental program that Utah has been for a long time. That matters so much more than your 4 and your 5-star recruits. You know why Alabama was freakishly good under Nick Saban? Because they had both. Instead of being an either-or, they had all of it. They could get the 4 and 5-star guys to come, so that was the raw material, and Nick Saban knew how to lead a developmental program, so he took 4 and 5-star guys and developed them from that much higher elevated starting point into first-round draft picks, right? What Kyle Whittingham has done for years and years and years is he has taken 2 and 3-star guys and developed them into draft picks. If you had given him 4 and 5-star starting point material, they would be first-round draft picks, right? That's the difference. So, yes, is it a bummer when you lose Salesi Moa to Tennessee? Sure. Is it the end of the story? Absolutely not. Is he the only guy that can help you and can be a pro-level player and can be an all-conference level player? Not even close. Not even close. If Cole Bishop had gone somewhere else than the University of Utah, you never would have thought about him or ever cared. And instead, he goes down as one of the best safeties you've had in the Power 4, Power 5 era, and he will be making an appearance, by the way, on that start bench cut when we get there.
All right. Definitely worthy of the power era, defensive backs, safeties in particular. And by the way, shout out to that texter for completely missing the point of what I said.
I love this is, we get constant interaction from this particular number, and I love that.
Yeah.
And it's good because you just gave me an extra 15 minutes of radio.
But
I promise, there's a difference between getting your hopes overly wrapped up in a 17 or 18-year-old's decision and knowing you got to put a winning football program on the field.
Yeah. But because he clearly took offense to me saying that the self-awareness of Utah not being Tennessee is a problem competitively. Like, sure, if that's actually front of mind, like, we're never gonna compete with Tennessee. Obviously, the coaches need to believe that they can compete with Tennessee and Ohio State and Michigan and Florida and Alabama and all those other teams in the Big Ten and SEC and throw Notre Dame in there too. But if it doesn't work out and that's who you lose to, I don't see how Kyle Whittingham or Morgan Scalley or any of the position coaches, Jason Beck, whoever, I don't see how they're losing much sleep. Because they know that they're not thought of like even Tennessee is in the SEC.
And by the way, Utah's football history under Kyle Whittingham has been more successful than Tennessee's, like from a conference championship perspective and things like that. But the reality of the situation right now for Utah fans, and we have to be used to this and have to be okay with this, is that Tennessee is swimming in a pond, a Scrooge McDuck world of riches that right now Utah is not, and probably forever Utah is not. And half of that is because of their affiliation with the SEC conference and the television deal and the revenue distributions that come with that. And the other half of it is just from the cultural dedication in the state and in the city to needing Tennessee football to be good in order for you to feel happy about living in Knoxville.
Yeah, we don't, as passionate as Utah and BYU fans are in particular, Aggies fans certainly too. We don't lose too much sleep over the teams not being national championship contenders. Tennessee fans do.
The worst way.
That's a big difference.
In the craziest way.
Yeah. And that's true of almost every program in the SEC and at least half of the programs in the Big Ten.
All right, we're going to take a quick one here. We're going to come back. I'm going to give you my first over-under number of the day. We might not get much further than that because I think this one is going to spark some debate. I've set a number for over-under receiving yards for the Utah top receiver. Whoever that ends up being, how productive will this person be? We'll take the over and the under. And by the way, 877-353-0700 at Real OC Sports. Always love to hear from you. I hope you can tell me who you think that person is going to be, because that is maybe the biggest question mark before we even get to the number.
By the way, too, we've got two pairs to two different concerts to give away tickets today.
Really?
So the first one, if you're up for it, OC, we can give that away next segment. That's to all-time low. Simple plan and topical trivia at the end of the show.
Let's do it. Sean O'Connell Show, ESPN 700, 92.1 FM, proud part of Utah's ESPN radio network. Welcome back to the Sean O'Connell Show, 877-353-0700. We got some tickets to give away. Simple Plan tickets. Is that right, James? Simple Plan?
Yeah, Simple Plan. At the end of the show during Topical Trivia, we have all-time low tickets right now.
Oh, all-time low right now. Okay, we're giving away all-time low at the Union October 16th.
Yeah, all week long, but we had an extra pair to give away today, so I thought we'd do it
all right.
during the hot lunch.
877-353-0700. Hot lunch question coming your way. This past weekend, excuse me, Pro Football Hall of Fame inducted how many players in the 2025 class? Easy, simple.
Yeah. Don't Google it. You just got to know.
You should know. There was also a hilarious one of those players was making all the other players take pictures with all of the other. They like shuffled the deck and were taking pictures with each other's busts, with each other's like little statue.
That's good. That sounds like something like something you and I would do.
You stand there, go take a picture with him, and there's like, oh, all right, cool. He was making everyone do it. Anyway,
it sounds like something you or I would do if we were inducted in the Hall of Fame.
Probably won't happen for us. 877-353-0700.
Hey, that's a loser mentality, OC.
Don't, James. All right, here's what we're doing. Over under for the receiving yards for Utah's top wide receiver in 2025. Now, this is actually a two-part question because in your mind, you're going to have to figure out, well, who that person is going to be. I'm not asking you that, but if you want to tell me who you think is going to get this over-under number.
If that helps you, if that helps inform your answer, go for it, but you don't have to do it.
Great. And actually, I've had to reduce the number. I set it probably a little bit too high. So what I'm doing now is I'm reducing the number, and I found a more scientific way to approach this, okay? What I did is I went back 10 seasons for the University of Utah, and then I remembered that you have to throw out the COVID year because that's Kyle Whittingham's rule. So I decided to go back 9 seasons, and I took the top receiver of the last 9 seasons. I added up all their numbers. I divided it by 9, all right? So I just want to know if you think that this year's top receiver can be the average of the last 9 years' top receiver and have 693 yards or more.
Wow, that's it.
Over under 693. And yeah, that's it was exactly my original number was 749.5. Can someone get 750 yards? But no, we'll do 692.5. Because if you hit 693, then you're the average of the last 9 seasons. Okay?
Yeah, I knew that the average number had to be lower than expected because we haven't had a 1,000-yard receiver in that time. We had an almost 1,000-yard receiver. With I think Darren Carrington's year probably fell into that, but like that's still I would have guessed with you that it would have been in the 700s at the very least. But
so,
693, I mean it's basically 700, but that's lower than I thought it would be.
You go back far enough, okay? This is 2015 for the University of Utah. The top receiver that year was Britton Covey. He was your top receiver in 2015.
His freshman year, Britton Covey, yeah.
519 yards was the best that your best receiver, your most productive receiver, gave you 519 yards. In 2016, your most productive receiver was Tim Patrick, 711 yards. Darren Carrington's 980 yards came in 2017. You mentioned him. You go to 2018, Britton Covey. Hey, we love Britton Covey.
I didn't realize he had 2 years where he was the top receiver yardage wise.
A more mature Britton Covey had 637 yards in 2018. In 2019, your leading receiver was Brant Keithy. 602 yards. In 2021, it was Brant Keithy again, 611 yards as a leading receiver in the Utah offense. Dalton Kincaid had 890 in 2022 as your leading receiver. Devon Vele in 2023, 593 And last year, Dorian Singer had 702 yards.
Yeah, I mean, when you have two of those years where your top receiver fails to get over 600, that's how you get under 700 yards.
So 692.5 over-under on Utah's leading wide receiver number. 877-353-0700. Tell me the over, the under. Tell me who you think that's going to be on this Utah roster. And tell me whether you hit the over or the under for the leading receiver. Now, it's one of these things. These numbers are fascinating to me because you can have a conference championship year. You can even have back-to-back conference championship years without anyone killing it as an individual wide receiver. Even in a passing league like the Pac-12 conference, where there were plenty of guys. I mean, some of those years, the Pac-12 conference had draft pick Amon-Ra St. Brown, like these types of guys, top flight wide receivers, and that's great, but it didn't translate. There's been a lot of years where the University of Oregon was contending and was a top team in the conference and didn't have 1,000-yard receivers. So it doesn't translate all the time. Ohio State has done a good job with it as of late. Alabama had a Heisman Trophy winning wide receiver. Colorado had one last year who split half of his time at wide receiver, right? So it's great when you have guys that are that freakishly productive, but it's not a requirement for you to have a good season. It's not a requirement for Utah's offense this year to have an 800, 900, 1,000-yard receiver. It's been a long time since they've had one. Shout out Drez Anderson. It's been a really, really long time. Even if you don't, you could end up winning 11 games this year. You could end up winning 10 games this year. You could be a conference champion and a playoff team if you have a guy topping your wide receiver room at 711 yards. Helps a lot more if you have 890 out of Dalton Kincaid. But it's not a requirement. So
by the way, Dalton probably doesn't get that many yards if Keithy doesn't get hurt in week 3, right? And miss the rest of the season after the 100%. ASU game.
There's absolutely
or was
no
that week
shot.
4, whatever it was.
There's no way that Dalton Kincaid becomes as big of a feature or even has that iconic game against USC where he's the only option if Brant Keithy is there to balance the offense out. So
they probably both get 6-something at the most.
Yeah, because look, there's been years for Brant Keithy. Brant Keithy was the top receiver in a couple of those years.
Just over 600 yards.
Yeah, 602 and 611 yards. So now I'm asking you to tack on effectively 100 yards to that. Does Utah have one of those guys? Utah's top wide receiver this year, 692.5, over or under?
I think I'm going to go over because that seems very attainable despite Utah's history. I'm also going to give the benefit of the doubt to Jason Beck being a new offensive coordinator, to Devin Dampier being a brand new quarterback, to the guys that they've brought in since spring football in the transfer portal, including Tobias Merriweather, who certainly looks the part. I'm gonna give the benefit of the doubt to that group of guys that they're gonna find, whether it's Tobias Merriweather or not. You find one guy to get over 700 yards or 695 as a receiver in this offense. Could be maybe it's out of the tight end room, like with Brant Keithy and Dalton Kincaid. Maybe it's a Hunter Andrews or someone else out of the tight end room. Otto Tia, who's going to play a lot of tight end. I think one of those guys is going to get there.
For your edification, as someone who may be listening, in the New Mexico offense last year, Luke Wysong, 5'10", 170 pounds, wide receiver for the New Mexico Lobos, finished the year with 69 catches for 840 yards.
Hitting the over.
So he would have hit the over in this offense. And he was like, he's a Britton Covey type. That should inform your over-under decision.
You know what? Lander Barton's going to get over 700 this year.
If that happens,
probably not a good year for you. Probably means that there was too many injuries.
If that happens, I just don't know I don't know what's going on. Yeah. If Lander Barton is going to have you know what we're going to do? We'll set We'll wait, and we're going to
Set it over under
we'll set
for
it
Lander
over
Barton.
under for Lander Barton offensively, and for Smith
Will he
Snowden
have more
offensively.
touchdowns than yards?
Will he be this year's? Will he be this year's
Caleb Loner.
Loner, where every catch he has is a touchdown? 877-353-0700. Scott Mitchell going to join us next on the Sean O'Connell Show. It's Utah's #1 sports talk, ESPN 700, 92.1 FM. Sean O'Connell Show on a Monday. Scott Mitchell, the Utah quarterback legend, color analyst on Utah radio broadcasts. He's going to be calling Utah football this month. How about that, Scott? We're in August, and Utah's first game is also in August. We're almost there, pal. Scott, you there? Oh, there he is.
Oh.
Sorry,
No
Scott.
worries. Yes, hello. Hi, everybody.
It's not game week, but it is game month.
No, it is, and it's real exciting. I mean, the Hall of Fame game, it always kind of jumps up and bites you, and you go, oh, the Hall of Fame game is right now, and then it just seems to just all be downhill from there. But I'm super excited about this season for one reason, and that's Coach Whittingham. He kind of said, look, I wasn't going to go out on a note like I did last year, and there just seems to be this renewed fire. Seems to be coming from a place of being the underdog and being counted out, and that's when he's at his best coaching. I'm just really excited. I just feel a really good energy with the new players, the new coaches, and new direction, the newfound commitment from the school, and I can't wait for it to start.
All right, Scott, we're having some fun as the season approaches, doing start, bench, cut, and also doing some overs and unders on Utah numbers, offensive numbers especially. And I set one today over under the yardage total for Utah's top individual wide receiver. Now, we don't know who that's going to be. You know better than I that in this Utah football offense, sometimes a guy emerges that we have no idea who he's going to be. Sometimes it's a tight end. Sometimes it's a slot wide receiver. Occasionally it's the big body, tall Tim Patrick or Devon Vele types. I took the average of the last decade's worth of top wide receiver numbers, and that comes up to 693 yards. So 692 and a half. Over or under the top wide receiver, whoever that ends up being for this Utah offense in 2025. Do they get more than that or less than that?
I'm going to say under that, and that's not a bad thing. I really think this offense is going to be one of patchwork for production, and I just think you're going to see a lot of different people contribute in a lot of different ways. I don't see with Utah being able to run the football and having a Wayshawn Parker and having a quarterback that can run. I don't see that happening, but being able to run the ball, it allows you to throw the ball, and if you can do it effective, which I think Utah will be able to, I just don't think there's a guy there that they're going to rely on. I think they're going to rely on a group of guys, and I think it's going to come from a lot of places, including the tight end. I think the tight end will be a part of what's going on. So I don't think it's a bad thing, but I think it's under that number.
Okay, yeah. We looked at individually year by year. I mean, even in the Pac-12 championship years, you didn't have these like stellar, super huge numbers. I mean, Dalton Kincaid had 890 in one of those championship years, but there's been plenty of times where Utah's had really good teams contended for or even won a conference championship, where your top receivers looking at about a 700-yard season. So we'll see how it plays out, but a fun number to try and play with. I was listening to Down and Dirty today as I was driving, and you were talking about a lot of different things, your own start in sports, which is really interesting to hear as, I'm watching Little League World Series right now. But I know, like, the Hall of Fame, the NFL Hall of Fame weekend is a special thing for sports fans. I imagine even more so for guys who played in the league for a long time to see, the best of the best honored in that way. And I just wanted you to expound on your thoughts on, Hall of Fame weekend, and especially what you saw from Sterling Sharp and Jared Allen and company.
Yeah, I usually like the Hall of Fame, and it's really the speeches, and I love to hear the backstory. I love to hear why these guys got into it, or who was that person, or there's always some great story or multiple stories from how kids grow up. And you have Sterling Sharp and Shannon Sharp, the only two brothers to make it into the Hall of Fame. And man, I can't imagine what their parents feel like, one would be incredible, but to actually have multiple, and then kind of how they interacted, and just I was just really touched by, Sterling giving his gold jacket to his brother, and genuinely doing that, and it was a return on something that Shannon had done for Sterling, because Shannon knew that how much it hurt Sterling not to his career being shortened, and knowing how much it meant to him, and giving him a Super Bowl ring was really quite a tremendous thing. I mean, we're all killing to get one Super Bowl ring, and here Shannon Sharp is just giving it away like it's candy. It was a very, very touching thing to me. And I love people like Jared Allen, who's someone who kind of comes out of nowhere. And it's really a testament to, having that drive and that burn and that work ethic and that willingness to just take your body to places that most people just don't want to do. And so many of these guys, they're just willing to just make unbelievable sacrifices to play consistently at a high level for such a long period of time. But I love the backstory. I love I think of John Randall, who was undrafted. We were drafted the same year. Well, he wasn't drafted. He was a free agent when they had 12 rounds. So 12 times teams went through and nobody picked John Randall, who became a Hall of Famer. And the only way he got a shot was he was undersized. He went to weigh in for the Minnesota Vikings, and he went to the hardware store because he was too light, and he bought a chain and a lock, and he wrapped it around his stomach like a belt, but he had sweats on, and he rolled it up so they couldn't see it. And he barely made it, like, on the number, and they signed him as a free agent, and that was a Hall of Fame career started by
that's insane.
A chain from a hardware store, and I just love the story, and because so many of them, they're just not cookie cutter, and they're really like I just really think they're an American story, where these you have dreams, and I had a dream as a kid, and it became a reality, and it was a cool thing to accomplish that and to do it, and so many people do it in so many different areas of their life. But on this week, it's that celebration from football, and what an amazing thing. I've always, man, I wonder what that luncheon's like with all the Hall of Famers, and you're in that room and people talk about it who are there, and they say it's just an incredible experience to be among the best of all time, and you're in that room. Just really, I mean, who would not want that?
So one of the interesting things about Halls of Fame for me is that there's very few that have a written criteria of what you have to have accomplished in your career in order to qualify. I mean, Utah just established this Ring of Honor on the stadium, and they actually put some parameters on it and said you have to have been part of 2 conference championships and things like that. And it's like, okay, that gives us a framework to decide who gets to go in, at least for Utah football. And I like that. But I also like in the Pro Football Hall of Fame and the Basketball Hall of Fame and the Baseball Hall of Fame, there's these debates and these other questions you can have. I want to know the Scott Mitchell criteria for what makes a Hall of Fame career, because there's nuance to it at every different position. We'll go with quarterbacks because that's the position you know best and you played at such a high level for so long. But what makes a Pro Football Hall of Fame quarterback in your mind? It's more than just winning Super Bowls, obviously. There's plenty of guys in there who haven't won one and still made it. You tell me, if you get the vote, what does a guy have to have done in order to get the Scott Mitchell endorsement into the Pro Football Hall of Fame?
So you have to go on eras really quick before I answer your question. I've had people who have a vote for the Hall of Fame actually call me about players and kind of because contemporaries that I played against, and on multiple times, or like LeRoy Butler, who was a defensive back for the Green Bay Packers, who I thought was one of the best safeties in my era, better than several guys who made it into the Hall of Fame. But so it's kind of, you speak of that debate, I've been a part of that debate, and it's a fun debate to have and to be a part of. But for quarterbacks, you look at a guy like Dan Marino, where, like, if you talk to anyone, everyone says he was the best. Like, he was the best, like, how he threw the football, the era that he was in, and the production he had was not a common thing. And then you look at someone like Joe Montana, who was of the same era, who won multiple Super Bowls and was just masterful. Like those two guys were, the class of that era. And yet Joe Montana will tell you that Marino was the very best. And then there are other people like, Troy Aikman, who won multiple Super Bowls and was a part of really, really good teams. and didn't have the numbers, but certainly had, he was very successful within a very successful team, and that's similar to a guy like, you could say that about Terry Bradshaw, you could say that about Bob Greasy, you could say that about someone like Roger Staubach, but I think also, and this isn't my vote, but there certainly is name recognition, popularity. A guy like Kenny Anderson. Kenny Anderson played every year against the Pittsburgh Steelers, and one of the greatest defenses of all time, and he had to face them his whole entire career twice a year, and went to a Super Bowl. And the numbers for his era, you absolutely could say that guy was in the Hall of Fame. And being around him, and just the production against the competition in the era, Kenny Anderson has a better career than Ken Stabler, than you could argue than Roger Staubach, other than winning the Super Bowls. And he was a really, really good player that's really gotten bypassed and probably won't make it, but should make it. And then you have a guy like Kurt Warner, who had kind of a shorter window, but really kind of made a punch, won a Super Bowl, lost the Super Bowl, went to lost 2 Super Bowls. And I would have said, had Kurt Warner not had a resurgence with like the Arizona Cardinals, I don't know that he got in. I don't know. I'm like, you got to play for a long time, and you got to throw for a lot of yards. And you just have to consistently be productive at that position. And so I'm going to say a guy's got to play, at least 12 years. I mean, now it's like playing with Monopoly money, because these guys, 5,000-yard seasons are like normal. So it's just so different today. And it's harder to gauge, but these guys are going to be upwards of, like, Phillip Rivers probably going to be in the Hall of Fame. He and Eli Manning are kind of the 2 guys right now. I was surprised Eli Manning didn't get in this time. I mean, because numbers-wise, he's certainly up there, but there's a perception thing that it's almost like, well, they won kind of in spite of him. He wasn't really, because Eli's kind of frumpy. He's not really that entertaining or engaging, but he was pretty productive. He was percentage-wise much more productive than Peyton in the playoffs and the Super Bowl era. I mean, Peyton Manning lost his first 5 years in the playoffs, didn't even win. I mean, Peyton Manning doesn't have a great playoff record, but he has the personality, he has the name, he has the kind of thing that, and I think that's part of why some guys get in the Hall. I mean, you could argue Paul Hornung shouldn't be in the Hall. There's a lot of guys that you could argue about. I'm not like John Lynch. I know we're talking about quarterbacks here. I just think it's super subjective. I know I'm probably not answering your question, like specifically with numbers, but certainly it's numbers. But I think there's also, like, it's kind of the respect of the players around you, like being not in the Pro Bowl, but being like an All-Pro.
Mm-hmm.
I think there needs to be so many, because the Pro Bowl's kind of that's just a joke. That's a popularity contest.
Yeah, Pro Bowl is a popularity contest, and All Pro is more prestigious inside the locker room.
Yeah, and it's kind of one of those things where players just know, you know who the best guys are, even if they're like I remember sitting in a meeting with Dan Marino watching game film, and he goes, who was playing really good? Is that Troy Aikman? Like Troy Aikman was, and he probably could have had bigger numbers had he been on a different team, but he was a good guy. And it's the same. I mean, you think back of, like, it's Terry Bradshaw and Roger Staubach in kind of that 70s era. Like, those were the names. Those were the guys. Like, they just were looked at as the best players, And you look at the best players today, it's like Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes, Matthew Stafford, Joe Burrow. Like, you just know those are the best guys. like Matthew Stafford will be in the Hall of Fame, and he had a really, terrible win-loss percentage when he was with the Detroit Lions. But he's one of the best quarterbacks, I guess. I would pick him on my team. I think he's really good.
Are wins a quarterback stat for you?
Oh man, it's not as important as it is production. I think it speaks well for someone who, you look at Joe Johnson or who played for the Cleveland Browns, who's in the Hall of Fame. Like to go, almost a decade with like barely winning a game and showing up every week and playing well and playing at a high level. You look at a guy like Warren Moon, never won a Super Bowl, but certainly played. I think Warren Moon's best trait is that he played a long, long time and played at a pretty high level for a long period of time. But it wasn't really very successful in the playoffs, but he. So winning total. Jim Kelly was extremely productive for the Buffalo Bills and never won a Super Bowl. Now he got to the Super Bowls, but a lot of. Phillip Rivers is going to be that conversation. I just, I think what they do is they put Super Bowls on it for guys that maybe don't have the same, like Troy Aikman won a lot of Super Bowls, but I don't know that his production was as much as some of these other guys. Or, you could even say like Drew Brees, who would be in the Hall of Fame and should be in the Hall of Fame, but he did win the one Super Bowl. But the other thing you have to realize, Sean, it's freaking hard to win a Super Bowl, especially when Tom Brady just gobbles a bunch of them up by himself.
There's going to be documentaries someday, and if nobody else makes them, I want to, about the people who stood in the way of other people's championships. In the NFL, certainly. In the NBA, we saw that, John Stockton and Karl Malone are two of the best 50 players ever in the history of the NBA. They were on the same damn team for 20 years and couldn't get a finals win because of Michael Jordan, right? If
Michael Jordan just could have played baseball a little bit longer.
If the NBA would have just suspended Michael Jordan a little bit longer for his gambling and made him go play baseball, then Carl and John could have won it. There's in combat sports, there's great examples of this where you can beat everybody in the world as a boxer or as an MMA fighter, but you just can't beat the champ, the one guy, and you're just you go down as the also ran. It's fascinating, and Tom Brady is that dude for I don't know how many players in the NFL.
Well, yeah, Peyton Manning. You could say he's a ton of guys. There's no question. Maybe it's the Pittsburgh Steelers and Ben Roethlisberger. There's that they were really good, and maybe they got robbed a little bit. Who knows? But yeah, definitely, Brady hurt a lot of people.
Okay, somebody calls Scott Mitchell and says, "Hey, is Eric Weddle going to be an NFL Hall of Famer? What do you say?"
See, I think safeties are really hard. I really do, because your value to a team in so many ways is not, it's not measured on interceptions. It's not measured on, tackles. There's just a lot of interest. Well, there's a lot of. I can't even say that word right now. I'm trying to. There's some value that you can't put into statistics, and I think Weddle's one of those guys. You look at what he did for the Rams. He was just this calming influence in this kind of piece that I think really helped them get over the top, and he was just very productive. They're gamers. They just tend to show up at the right time at the right place, and I think he's one of those guys. Let me just say this: if John Lynch is in the Hall of Fame, Eric Weddle should be in the Hall of Fame.
I'm glad you said exactly that.
I'll just say
that. I pulled up the numbers for both guys. John Lynch played from 93 to 2007, so he was 15 seasons, right? And in those 15 seasons, he had 26 interceptions. Eric Weddle in his 13 seasons plus the little stint with the Rams that ended up giving him the Super Bowl ring he so long coveted. He had more. He had 29 interceptions in fewer years. John Lynch never scored a touchdown. Weddle scored 4 touchdowns. And he was a 5-time All-Pro and a 6-time Pro Bowler. So it's right there, right? I mean, you're talking about a guy who's on that in that same conversation. And if one guy's in that conversation and he gets in, what would keep the other guy in the conversation out? That becomes, I guess, something above my pay grade. But
if Eric Weddle wants to get into the Hall of Fame, he needs to go out and publicly be public. I just think John Lynch was a part of being out and kind of about, because a lot of the voters are sports writers, and a lot of people, you know, and you kind of are, when you're put front of mind, it does. I think it does play into people's psyche, and you're talked about more. You know, when you're out there, it's like, you know, I'm on the radio talking about my career, which was never a Hall of Fame career, but I'm talking about my experiences, and I think it's one of those things would bode well for him. I mean, if I had a choice between the two, I would take Eric Weddle, and not because he's a Utah guy or whatever, but just because of how he played the game. John Lynch never put the fear of God into me. Like, I never thought, oh man, John Lynch is going to make a play. But there are, you know, Benny Blades I played with in Detroit thought he was a better safety. Mark Carrier, who played for the Bears, and we played together in Detroit. You know, Leroy Butler, a lot of guys, Darren Woodson, Steve Atwell. I mean, there's a ton of guys that I would put ahead of a guy like John. That was a shocking one to me, actually. And I know he's a great guy, and he's a smart guy. He went to Stanford, and he was a really good player. But that defense he was in just, you know, it wasn't. It almost in some ways kind of protected someone like that. I never saw anything from him. I go, wow, John Lynch has kind of got the it factor.
Well, the eras, obviously, what era you played in affects things pretty drastically. The teams you played on, if you collected those rings, this Pro Bowl, the All-Pro, all that stuff, it's really fascinating to see how it all kind of shakes out.
Yeah.
I mean, there's Alex Smith, his first year of eligibility is next year. I don't even think he's going to be talked about as a Hall of Fame guy. He's got some pretty dang impressive numbers, some longevity. Yeah. And how do you factor in, like, the comeback after, you know, almost dying, almost losing your leg, and then you come back? Like, what is that in terms of, like, you know, a reputation builder, or a way that people might consider you more strongly because of what you did, even if it's harder to measure? You know what I mean?
Yeah, and Alex is out. You know, he's doing commentating, and so he's able to kind of tell his story, because his story is compelling, and there's certainly a sympathy vote for it, or, you know, it's one of those great story kind of things, and you get a lot of you know, it's like it's the magic of marketing and promotion, and you know, you say it enough, you repeat it enough, and people hear it enough, and then they engage with it, and you know, that's where I think some of these Hall of Fame decisions come from, for sure.
Well, Scott, I've chewed up way too much of your time. I always appreciate you jumping on.
Cool. I love it. Yeah, it's a fun conversation.
We're almost there, man. Just a few more weeks, and then you're calling Utah football games. Can't wait.
It'll be a lot of fun. Thank you, Sean.
Scott Mitchell, you can hear him on the Down and Dirty immediately preceding my show Monday through Friday here on ESPN 792 on FM. And when I'm off on my broadcasting duties for the PFL, which we've got a couple more of those before the season, and then things slow down a lot during the season. Very happy about that. We could stay focused on Utah football, but you'll hear Scott Mitchell filling in for me on those days. I'm going to give you some Hall of Fame resumes, and some of these you're going to be like, wow, what a career. Some of them you're going to look at and say, wait, that guy's in the Hall of Fame? We'll do that next on the Sean O'Connell Show, ESPN 792 on FM, proud part of Utah's ESPN radio network. Save the number in your phone, 801-850-9100. That is Advanced Window Products. Nate Orchard, Jake Weber, friends of the program. I've told you many, many times, if you're going to replace your windows, and it's a good idea, increases the home value, reduces your energy costs. If you're going to replace your windows, do it with Advanced Windows for no other reason than if anything goes wrong, and I don't think it will because they're really, really good at what they do, but if anything goes wrong, it's a hassle-free fix, meaning you call Nate, you call Jake, you call Advanced Windows, and you say, hey, you know what, there's a little condensation between the window panes here. Hey, my neighbor's kid threw a baseball through the window, whatever. You're covered under a lifetime warranty. That actually means a lifetime warranty, and you're covered by a local company, which means there is no runaround. There is no, oh, that's actually an installer's problem, and we use a different company to install our windows. Oh, that was actually a manufacturer's problem, and our manufacturer is in North Carolina, so you're going to have to call them. It is Advanced Windows. They are accountable for the entire process. They are accountable to you as the customer. They will take care of you now and in the future, the whole life of your home. AdvancedWindows.com or 801-850-9100, $2,500 off, 10 windows or more. Get on the schedule now. Takes 8-ish weeks, and before you know it, we're going to get a little crisp in the air. You're going to get a little bit of freeze coming in just a few months. I hate saying that because it's been such a wonderful summer, and I want it to last forever. AdvancedWindows.com, 801-850-9100. Get on the schedule now. $2,500 off, 10 windows or more. We were just talking some NFL Hall of Fame. This was the past weekend, Hall of Fame game on Thursday. We talked about how underwhelming that was on Friday in my airing of grievances. And then, you know.
Sure, it was great on the radio, though, on Utah's #1 sports talk for everyone who tuned in. I'm sure the 45-7 game or whatever the final score ended up being was outstanding on the radio.
Yes, absolutely what people were excited about.
Trey Lance game, yeah.
It's gonna go down in history as the Trey Lance game.
It really will.
Okay. Yeah. We were talking about the Hall of Fame, and I asked Scott Mitchell his kind of criteria for a Hall of Fame induction. There's some guys coming up for their first year of eligibility. Alex Smith is one of them. Another one that I really like, Frank Gore, is a guy that
no bias there though for you at all.
Well, look, I don't pretend to be unbiased, which is another conversation we need to have because Dan Patrick was on his high horse this morning about how you can't work in sports and be a sports fan, be a fan of teams.
That's a common theme with Dan. I think
exactly.
I think what happens is he grew up in an era where people who, even TV guys like him, because he didn't. That's what he was at the until he left ESPN Dan Patrick's show.
Yeah. No,
throughout the rest of the time he was TV guy. You checked your fandom at the door, but also it seemed to be even more of a personal thing for him in that he did it on purpose, not just because that's how things were in the era, because he didn't want being a TV guy. TV guys need to be liked more than most everyone else. So, and that their bosses need the TV guys to be super likable. He didn't want anyone to criticize him for talking about something bad that happened with the Cleveland Indians at the time because, we found out that you're a Red. We know you're a Reds fan, so that's all. That's the only reason why you're doing it.
Look,
but
it's fine. I understand his stance. I do, because especially
but he gets
in that
on his high horse all the time about it.
Especially in that generation, like okay, but now it's done the opposite. It's made Dan is exceedingly likable, and that is the thing that is the least likable about his personality, perhaps on air, is that he's just like, no, you can't be. You got to play it right down the middle. I mean, they were really pressing him today. The Danettes were just like, what about after you retire? Because everyone knows that's coming sooner than later for Dan. Then can you pick up the – he's like, no, can't do it. It's like, knock it off, Dan. Anyway, that's not where I wanted to go here. We're talking about the Hall of Fame criteria, and it's different for everyone. Frank Gore's an interesting case. I asked about Eric Weddle. If John Lynch is in, Eric Weddle is in. Okay? Like, that's – if there's no other reason for John Lynch to be in the Hall of Fame, hell yeah. You're in the Hall of Fame, and that means Weddle should be in as well. There's a different way. Like, I think one of the things, you certainly look at numbers. How much did you win does matter, although there's players like Joe Thomas, who was never on good teams and was the best guy in the league. If you're the best, if you're a top 3 player at your position in your era for multiple years, you probably deserve to be a Hall of Famer. The more interesting, the more important way I think you should decide is, can you tell the story of 2010's football and not put that person in? Can you tell the story of 2020's football and not put that person in? Can you tell the story of 1980s pro football and not put that person in? If the answer is, well, no, you got to talk about him and what he did, absolutely you belong in the Hall of Fame. Frank Gore is the 3rd leading rusher in NFL history, and that is a longevity play for him. You could make an argument he was never one of the best 5 running backs in the game. But
you have any All-Pros, Frank Gore? Maybe 1 or 2?
But you know how good the longevity should matter, right? There's a big conversation about this with a guy in the fight world. His name is Jim Miller. He has been like a middle-of-the-roster level fighter in the UFC and had more UFC fights than most people have had fights in their career total. He's been part now of 3 decades of fighting. And he's never been a champion. He's never really even contended hotly, like been close to a championship. I'm like, yeah, but that guy's done it longer than anyone else is able to do it. He deserves to be in the Hall of Fame. There are a lot of people who think, no, that longevity is not a thing that should get you into the Hall of Fame. I think it should. That's a Frank Gore thing too.
Yeah.
But
just looked it up, by the way. 0 All-Pros for Frank Gore.
Wow.
But he was named to the NFL's All-2010s team. 5-time Pro Bowler. So as far as like individual accolades, if you set career numbers aside, because those are certainly individual accolades, but you set career stats aside, he has his resume is really lacking in the really important individual accolades. No MVPs, no All-Pros, 5-time Pro Bowler, but we talked about Pro Bowls not near as important as All-Pros. On the All-2010s team, that's significant. But then you consider the career numbers, which speaks to his longevity, like you say, OC. Third career rusher in the history of the NFL and career rushing yards. Like, you look at that and go, well, then you can't keep that guy out of the Hall of Fame. He's such an interesting case.
So we'll see. I'm going to give you some numbers, and I want you to tell me, before I tell you the names, I want you to tell me if this is a Hall of Fame resume.
All right.
Okay?
I'm ready.
This person played for 14 years in the NFL at the quarterback position. I'm just going to tell you, because I kind of don't want you to guess who it is at first. I'm going to tell you no Super Bowl victories, multiple-time Pro Bowler. Okay?
Right. No All-Pros.
No All-Pros.
Okay.
14 years, 62% completion percentage on 35,000 yards, 199 touchdowns, and 109 interceptions. Okay, so that's a pretty darn good career.
This is someone that they may have played recently, they may have played before, or is this someone who's a candidate for the Hall of Fame now?
This is someone who is eligible for a Hall of Fame. I'm not going to tell you if they're in the Hall of Fame or not. Okay? Here's another person. This person played 13 seasons in the NFL, 27,000 yards, 50.1% completion percentage for a career, 50% passer, 27,663 yards, 173 touchdowns, 220 interceptions, and Super Bowl winner. Based on those two, who is the Hall of Fame?
I mean, the first one seems like the Hall of Famer. The second one seems like definitely not a Hall of Famer, but I'm going to guess that it's the opposite.
The first one is Alex Smith, who I don't know is going to get any kind of real consideration for Hall of Fame, even though he becomes eligible for 2026. So now that the 2025 class is in, he is eligible. Okay. The other is Joe Namath.
Oh, my goodness.
Joe Namath threw 220 interceptions and 173 touchdowns.
50 more interceptions than touchdowns. Now, listen,
his career quarterback rating is 65.5.
Goodness gracious.
A 50% career passer.
Couple of things that I think Scott, I agree with him having a hard time on the spot coming up with this should be the criteria for quarterbacks, because like Joe Namath's era and Johnny Unitas, even those guys who played in the 60s and 70s, it was a different standard for what stats. I mean, first of all, they didn't even keep most of the stats we track today. Secondly, the stats that they did track back then, it was a different standard of that's what a good quarterback does, which obviously today it looks really bad. And thirdly, Joe Namath is a Hall of Famer because he was a Jets Super Bowl winning quarterback.
That's right.
That's it.
He was a
the
star.
Hall of Fame. He was famous. So that's and he had a great moment with the Jets in 1969. Speaking of Johnny Unitas and the Baltimore Colts, and he rode that into the Hall of Fame. Broadway Joe rode that in the Hall of Fame. If he plays for can't say the Green Bay Packers because they were super famous. He plays for any other team besides the Packers and the New York City team at that time, and he puts up those numbers, he probably isn't a Hall of Famer.
I'm looking at like Fran Tarkenton was his contemporary, who's also a Hall of Famer.
If he's a Minnesota Vikings quarterback and he performs like that, wins the Super Bowl, even, I don't think he's a Hall of Famer.
Fran Tarkenton was played a lot of the same years that Joe Namath did, so the position was similar. Fran Tarkenton was a 57% career passer. So again,
significantly better.
It's significantly better, but it's also not like 57% now. You're not the starter for your team.
Yeah, that's really bad.
He had 342 touchdowns and 266 interceptions. So at least he's like 1.5 to 1.
Yeah,
on his touchdown interception ratio.
But also, you notice he didn't win a Super Bowl with Minnesota, but Fran Tarkenton had to be significantly better than Joe Namath to get into the Hall of Fame because he did not have a famous Super Bowl win with the New York Jets.
The era thing, it's got to be wild to be a quarterback now and look at like Fran Tarkenton, 57%, Bart Starr, 57%, Joe Namath, 50% career passer. It's just a different time of football. It's a different style of football. It's a different everything. Bob Greasy, 56% passer, 192 touchdowns, 172 interceptions. I mean, these guys didn't have to take care of the ball at all.
Let me give you another completion percentage that probably blows, old school football fans' minds. 54.6% was the career completion percentage for one Johnny Unitas.
Wow.
One of the most famous quarterbacks in the history of the game. He was not even a 55% passer.
Dude, I'm like Len Dawson was 57% was the magic number for quarterbacks who played in the 60s. Yeah. Terry Bradshaw's career passing percentage, you want to guess?
58%.
51.9%.
51%.
212 touchdowns, 210 interceptions.
He was, but again, that's not big market New York City guy, but the most famous team of his era, one of the most famous players in the history of the league, Hall of Fame. Some guys get in off their fame.
Fascinating stuff.
Yeah,
the way the Hall of Fame works.
I don't totally agree with that, by the way. I think that there should be more than fame, even though that's in the name. But that's how a lot of guys get in is they were famous and they played really well in some big moments.
Let's see, who's the most recent quarterback inductee into the Hall of Fame, according to the official Hall of Fame website?
Is it Brady? Someone after Brady, right?
They don't even have Brady on their list. This is the official Pro Football Hall of Fame, and they don't have Tom Brady in as a quarterback. What?
That's weird.
They gotta refresh. You gotta refresh the list. Official Hall of Fame website. The Peyton Manning's the one, the most recent one on theirs.
Okay, but Brady made it a couple years after because he retired a while longer. Yeah.
Peyton Manning, class of 2021. He had 539 touchdowns, 251 interceptions. So the modern quarterback has to be so much better at taking care of the football and has to produce 4 times as many touchdowns in order for their name to go in the Hall of Fame. And you got to win Super Bowls, basically.
And, like, I don't know how many thousands of yards, too. Like, almost, like, way more passing yards, too.
Peyton Manning's official career number is 71,940 passing yards. That's pretty good.
Hot take.
Additional career statistics for Peyton Manning: 1 reception for -2 yards.
Let's go.
Let's go, Peyton. Hell yeah, dude.
-2 receiving yards.
I'm now going to try to find all of the additional career stats for these random quarterbacks to see who else. Like, 1 interception. What? How'd you get that?
That reminds me. So at the old Sports Center 50 States in 50 Days event that we did at the University of Utah softball stadium, Dumpke Family Stadium, a couple weeks ago, Scott in his bag, Scott Mitchell had a few of his own football cards that he says, "Yeah, I just keep them on me in case people want an autograph."
Oh, wow.
And they don't have anything
Nice of him.
They don't have, like, if they say, hey, it's like the actor's headshot, right? That's he has some cheaper, not super nice football cards, like paper football cards of his. And on the back of these, there's some stats from that season and seasons before. So I picked up one of the cards and I said, "Scott Mitchell, did you know that Scott Mitchell had this had this many touchdowns in this particular game in this season?" And he would be like, "I don't remember it being that, but I do remember that game." And so I bring that up to say it's funny. It's funny to quiz people. He told me about his ancillary stat. He's like, "How many rushing touchdowns do you think I had?" I said, I made a guess. I was a few off. And he's like, I'm like, "How many of those were quarterback sneak?" And he said it was like 16, I think he said. And he's like probably 14. So I'd love to hear Scott's longest run if we were able to find that ancillary stat for Scott.
We should try
Mitchell.
to find that. Now I'm going to start campaigning aggressively for Weddle to be in the Hall of Fame.
Let's go, because he's not going to campaign for himself, right?
No, he's too busy coaching high school football.
Well, it's just not necessarily his personality to be doing that sort of thing. So we got to do it for him, right?
Wow. How many tackles did John Lynch have? 1,059. That's a lot.
Yeah.
That's a lot of combined tackles. How many did Eric Weddle have in 14 years? 1,179. I'm telling you, man.
Significantly more.
Our guy Weddle had more interceptions, more interception return yards, more touchdowns, more passes defended. He was a better player. He had 30 more passes defended statistically. And Lynch only played 1 more year.
Who's the running back equivalent to that for Frank Gore? If that guy's in, Frank Gore's got to be in.
Oh, that's a good question. You know what? I'll give you the answer to that question after we double break on the Sean O'Connell Show. ESPN 700, 92.1 FM. Also, preseason coaches poll is out. Where are the Utes? Utah's #1 sports talk, ESPN 700 and 92.1 FM. Live Night Events presents the 2025 Granary Live Concert Series, powered by Nightingale College and Murdoch Hyundai, Utah's #1 Hyundai dealer. Outdoor concerts in the heart of downtown Salt Lake City's Granary District. Details are available at ESPN700sports.com. Welcome to hour number 3 on a Monday of the Sean O'Connell Show. If you can't catch the whole show live, which we understand, on-demand section at ESPN700sports.com. Download the ESPN 700 app. Tell your smart speaker to play ESPN 700. You can catch us on YouTube at ESPN 700 Sports Utah. All right, couple of things. We're talking NFL Hall of Fame, players becoming eligible next year. There's an interesting class coming. Frank Gore is one of those players that is going to get a lot of debate because his career, his case is built on longevity, which, by the way, at running back should probably be enough. James, before the break, you said, well, who's the guy for Frank Gore that John Lynch is for Eric Weddle? If John Lynch is in the Hall of Fame, Eric Weddle deserves to be in the Hall of Fame. All right? If you compare, they're very close era comparisons, right? They played in the same style of football. They overlapped their careers. Lynch won more Super Bowls. Weddle had more meaningful stats. Lynch played one extra year, which means Weddle was a more potent player year over year. More Pro Bowls, more All-Pros for Weddle, et cetera, okay? So if Lynch is in, Weddle should get in. You said, well, who's that guy for Frank Gore? If Frank Gore is in, or if this person is in, then Frank Gore should get in. And I went to the list, the official Hall of Fame list, which we found out is a little outdated, of players by position. And, James, I regret to inform you that you're going to have a really hard time finding anyone who played as long as Frank Gore did at the running back position. He played 16 years at running back, where the average career is less than 3. There's no Hall of Fame running backs who played 16 years in the league. That
class of his own.
That by itself is kind of enough. Emmitt Smith played 15 years. There's a lot of guys who played 12 or 13. Doak Walker played 16 years. There's just not dudes who played in this era of football.
Is there someone among the 12 or 13 guys that's like Frank Gore was definitely a better player than he was?
Well, I don't know if you'd say a better player, but if Franco Harris is in the Hall of Fame, which he is,
yeah,
then Frank Gore deserves to be in the Hall of Fame. When you talk about how many 1,000-yard seasons did this guy have, how many touchdowns did this guy score, what was the kind of average output of this individual over a long career? Franco Harris played 13 years in the NFL, and Frank played 16, and their numbers are very, very similar, with Frank getting the favorable comparison on everything except for the All-Pro and the Pro Bowl, which I know matters to people.
Yeah, and you gotta when you're comparing guys from two very different eras like that, you have to take some of those All-Pro stuff with a grain of salt, because, and this is across all sports, but because NFL in the 70s, there were way less teams in the league, so way less players for Franco Harris to be competing against to get those All-Pro nods than Frank Gore did. So you gotta take those into consideration. But yeah, that seems right to me, because even though we're comparing two very different eras with there, when Franco Harris was in his heyday, teams were basically only running the ball. Like there was some passing, some guys who were prolific passers, but not the same way that prolific passers are today. So I think that running backs are one that you don't have to do too much to go to. You don't have to do too many things to go, oh, well, it was like this back then and it's like this today. Well, hey, like they ran the ball more with Franco Harris than they did when Frank Gore was playing for the San Francisco 49ers.
By the way, I misspoke. When I said Doak Walker played Doak Walker, I thought it said 1950 to 1965. It was 1950 to 1955.
Oh, okay.
So he did not play.
He played 5 years, 5 or 6
He
years.
was the opposite end of that spectrum. Yeah, I mean, like, you look at guys like Jerome Bettis, 93 to 2005. That's a long career. As a running back, that's impressive. Earl Campbell, 78 to 85, is kind of like that sweet spot wheelhouse. Eric Dickerson played 83 to 93. There's just not a lot of running. There are no running backs who played as long as Frank Gore, and
only 2 that had more yards than him.
It's really impressive. All right.
By the way, with Frank Gore, he was kind of a forgotten guy in the NFL despite his longevity, like during his run. He was also a forgotten guy at the University of Miami. He started out behind Clinton Portis at the University of Miami. Then he had 1, maybe 2 years as the lead running back, but then for the University of Miami, but then that was kind of the beginning of University of Miami going from being national champions or considered to be national champions every year to what they are now. So he's just a really productive guy that did not get as much shine really at any level.
As long as we're talking about Frank Gore, I want to bring up the fact that Frank Gore, he's officially 2-0 as a pro boxer, and he boxed an exhibition bout against someone that we know well, Darren Williams.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that.
Darren won. So,
but exhibition, so doesn't.
Shout out.
That's why he's still undefeated.
Yeah, shout out to our guy Darren Williams, who's actually like, you don't want to fight Darren Williams. He knows what he's doing. He's actually really tough. Good boxer. He was
You've been in the gym with him before?
We've trained together. Yeah,
right.
He actually knows what he's doing. He's before he had to focus only on basketball, he was also a really good he was a really good wrestler. Unfortunately, high school wrestling and high school basketball are during the same time of year, so you can't do both. But he was like a state champion level middle school wrestler before he had to focus on basketball. So watch out for Darren Williams. If you see him
chose to focus on basketball.
What a bad idea! What a bad idea that was. What a foolish errand that was.
He was on a Hall of Fame trajectory his first 4 or 5 years in the league.
If he had stayed healthy, then things would have worked out. But as it stands, you know what? He did really well for himself.
Yes,
and he won a couple of gold medals, and he's done. He lives a good life. Like he's really good at being retired, and his kids seem like they're happy, which is the most important thing to him. So. Very impressive, and got a little boxing win over a potential NFL Hall of Famer that you can lean on.
An undefeated career boxer,
an undefeated professional boxer. All right, the AP coaches poll is out. Where is the University of Utah in the first preseason rankings that have been released that we would call anything like official? This is a poll that people pay attention to, and your Utes are outside the top 25. The points that they got from the others receiving votes category would effectively put them at 30th, ranked number 30 in the country.
Grievance.
So this is a really interesting reflection of, again, preseason expectations in the SEC and in the Big Ten. You can close your eyes and just recite, and you're correct. When you talk about how widely differentiated the opinions are. Oh, by the way, the same is true for the ACC. Like, everyone's just like, yeah, the ACC, it's Clemson, and it's Miami, and it's everyone else. And people think SMU is going to be good, although I still have a hard time calling them an ACC team because they bought their way in, which, why not? But the Big 12, you look at one publication's preseason poll, one betting book's, likely champion or whatever, and you're probably going to get some level of expectation. It's not like the Big 12 has no representation in this preseason poll. The highest ranked Big 12 team according to the coaches is number 11, Arizona State, right behind Miami at 10 and right in front of Illinois at 12.
11's a good spot to be for a top ranked team in a conference preseason. That's a pretty good spot.
Kansas State is the next highest ranked team, number 20. Iowa State 21. Then it's Texas A&M. Also, they technically are tied at 21 because they received the same number of points in the preseason polling system. So we'll just say Texas A&M is 22. BYU at 23. Texas Tech at 24. Boise State at 25. And then the also receiving votes, Oklahoma, Missouri, Louisville, USC, Utah, and Baylor. And again, Baylor in some people's metrics is the favorite to win the conference. Here, they're number 31 in the country and number 6 in the conference. It's wild how all over the place this is. Now, I actually think that Arizona State being 11 as the highest ranked team in your conference, that sucks for the Big 12 because listen to this. Texas, number 1, Ohio State 2, Penn State 3, Georgia, Notre Dame, Clemson, Oregon, Alabama, LSU, Miami. So as one would expect, the SEC has multiple teams, the Big Ten has multiple teams, and even the ACC's highest ranked team is number 6 in the country. Your highest ranked team being number 11 is a reflection that you are, again, just like it was in the Pac-12 and just like it was last year in the Big 12, you are, again, going to have to overprove that your conference is worth being part of the conversation. You're going to have to overprove that. Even if Arizona State ends up being the best team in your conference, like, oh, wow, these guys rose all the way up. It's like you have to have Texas, Ohio State, Penn State, and Georgia lose twice before Arizona State can leapfrog them in any kind of a situation. Now, I know these are all just rankings discussions, and preseason rankings don't mean jack, but the perception against your conference is a very real thing that happened to Utah in the Big 12, or excuse me, in the Pac-12 conference, and is still happening to Utah in the Big 12 conference. And there's no foreseeable way out of this, that you are going to have to overdo it on being considered one of the best teams in the country. You're really going to, I mean, you have a harder time being taken as seriously. You can be the 5th best team in the SEC right now, and everyone's just like still better than the best team in the Big 12.
Yeah. When you put it that way, I have to amend what I said before. It's really not that great a spot. I didn't anticipate there being both Clemson and Miami ahead of them, so that's part of why. That's part of why I was like 11 could be a lot worse for the top ranked team in a conference that people don't give any attention to nationally. But when you're not just when it's not just one ACC team ahead of you, but 2, that's an indication that nationally the folks don't, at least the coaches don't give you too much credit for being the best team of the Big 12.
And I get it. Coaches probably didn't even vote in this thing. The ones who did have only watched film on the teams in their own conference. So we could probably grab Kirby Smart's preseason poll, right, if Kirby actually voted on it. And it's going to be Georgia 1, Texas 2, Alabama 3, and it's just going to be – and then he'll be like –
1 through 16 is SEC.
And then he's going to be like, well, we can't put Vanderbilt in there in good conscience. So 1 through 15 is SEC. Now let's look at we'll do Ohio State 16. We'll do Michigan. Like they only care about the conference that they're in. And the SEC coaches, going back to their media day and even the coaches' meetings before that, there's been some agreement, verbal or otherwise, where they're just like, hey, we're going to elevate ourselves above everyone else conversationally at every opportunity. We're not going to give anybody else any kind of credit at all. And that's what they've done so far. And it's going to be that way as the season plays itself out. But the Big 12, at least for the foreseeable future, is going to be occupying this place between 11 and 25. And for Utah to climb above that, for BYU to climb above that, for Arizona State to climb above that, they're going to have to overdo it. They're going to have to be much better And there's, by the way, for Arizona State, already thought of as your best team, there's not really an opportunity until October to climb much higher than that, because your preseason is Northern Arizona,
Powerhouse.
an SEC game, but it's against Mississippi State, who is like the bottom half. Texas State at home. Shout out Wildcats of San Marcos. Or are they Bobcats? I always forget. And then
Cats. They've
got one at Baylor. They're home against TCU. Then they're on the road at Rice-Eccles. And I'm saying that's an important game. That's a game that I think Utah will probably be ranked at that point. And if Arizona State can beat Utah in that scenario, now they're able to jump up to like number 9 or something like that.
Yeah, what's tricky, though, is like Baylor might be ranked by the time they play. TCU might be ranked by the time they play. Utah, I would guess, like you, that they probably are ranked if everything goes the way that everyone hopes it will up to that point for Utah. But Utah, if they're ranked, will probably be lower than ASU. So how much do they really go further up the standings if everything in front of them stays the same? I could see the AP voters, because it's the AP poll at that point, going, well, yeah, you beat a good Utah team on the road, but we also thought they were worse than you going into that game, so we're not going to give you too much credit in the standings.
It's why and many coaches have expressed this, and they are correct. It's why a preseason poll is actually no good for anyone except us in the sports talk radio industry, because it gives us fodder and it allows us in the doldrums, the dog days of summer, to have conversation points that hopefully people want to engage with. But from a team standpoint, there's a reason why the college football playoff rankings don't come out in the preseason, and they don't come out after week 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. They want a sample size for good reason, right? Setting this level, setting this expectation, even for the people who kind of reject the premise offhand, it still subliminally tells you that the Big 12 Conference, their best team, is not even top 10 right now. And that's maybe true. I mean, we'll be honest. I've been honest. I think that this conference champion in the Big 12 this year is going to be a 3-loss team. I think best case scenario for the University of Utah, much like in the Pac-12 championship years, you are probably a 3-loss team who is the best in your conference, who overcomes maybe some tiebreaker situations because of how large these conferences are. Not everybody gets to play everybody. And then, you win the games that matter. You win the contests against the teams that are up there at the top of the standings with you. That's how it was done in the Pac-12 conference, and that's how they're going to have to do it, I think, in this Big 12 conference. I think that the SEC, the conversation around a 2-loss SEC champion or a 2-loss Big 10 champion is so drastically different than around a even 2-loss but probably 3-loss Big 12 champion, whether that's Utah or it's Baylor or it's TCU or it's Kansas State or whatever. Just the way it plays out, just the way that this I mean, it's a conference where we've talked about it. We talked about it at Big 12 Media Days. There are 8 teams that I can look at and say, yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if they're at least in the conference championship game. Would they be favored in that game? No. But would I be surprised if they found a way into that game because of how the schedule works out? I mean, that is crazy and ultimately not great for the league. I look at, you said, well, what if TCU is ranked by the time? TCU could be the resume builder here, okay? North Carolina, that's how and North Carolina is now a respected team that is going to get a lot of information, conversation, attention because of the Belichick situation, right? So if Sonny Dykes can go beat Bill in his North Carolina collegiate debut, suddenly people are like, oh, hey, TCU, what's up? I've seen them. They got Abilene Christian at home. Doesn't matter. SMU is a preseason ranked team. And then
playoff team last year, so that's going to give him some respectability.
And then they got Arizona State. Now, the best case scenario for TCU is you're 3-0 before you play Arizona State. You're now a probably number 19 in the country kind of a situation, number 20 in the country, and Arizona State, assuming that they don't stub their toe in a game that they absolutely should win in their first three. That sets up a nice little Big 12 slug it out, 2 ranked teams in the Big 12 in Game 4. So I like the point you made that maybe Arizona State does have some meat on the bone with that schedule once you get down week 4, 5, 6, and it's a tough stretch in there for the Sun Devils. And by the way, you can do the same thing with Baylor's schedule. You can do the same thing that we just did with TCU's schedule. Baylor's got Auburn and then SMU. We're going to find out right quick whether or not Baylor gets to keep this this sort of, I don't want to call it momentum, but it's goodwill.
Yeah, that's the word that came to mind for me. Preseason goodwill.
There are
a lot of it in Waco.
There are people that are just like, hey, Dave Aranda, we were wrong. The conversations we were having about him last year at this time, we were wrong about that. He's a good coach. This is a good team. They've got a good quarterback. The Sawyer Robertson kid is going to be good. If they beat Auburn and then they go on the road and beat SMU and then they come back home against Samford, they're going to be fine. Then it's a bye week and then it's Arizona State. Like, all right, now Baylor maybe, but if you lose to Auburn, everyone's going to hate you because you lost not only to an SEC team, you lost to a not spectacular SEC team. If you lose to SMU, you probably get away with that because they're going to be considered a really, high quality team.
But you might get I could also see lots of people saying, yeah, we think they're a high quality team, but they're also like the third best team in the ACC.
Yeah.
Then you just lost to them. Like I could see them getting it skewing negative for those reasons. And for Utah, like you can make a similar case, do the same thing with Utah's schedule. They start the Big 12 play against Texas Tech, right?
Yes.
Which is a tough way to start based on the preseason hype. Now Texas Tech's got to prove it, but right now that feels like it's going to be a tough game. And then in October you have ASU and BYU in back-to-back weeks, a couple weeks later. So that all 4 of those teams we just talked about that people could see winning the Big 12 conference this year. They've got 3 or 4 weeks in a row, end of September into October. That's going to really, that could make or break their championship hopes.
And using the Big 12 placement in the preseason coaches poll here, and then you go through, all right, well, where's the room for upward mobility? Knowing full well, by the way, that those SEC teams that are stacked above you, there's what, 12 of them in the conference that are ranked higher than Utah is right now. And the Big 10 teams, they're going to have to play each other at some point. All right? So maybe you have to build in a couple of losses there, which is why the margin for error for Arizona State, your highest-ranked Big 12 team, for Kansas State, your second highest-ranked Big 12 team, and everyone else, all the way down to Utah and beyond, the margin for error just is not there because any loss, any loss that one of these SEC teams have, or even that SMU has, or that Miami or Clemson have, if it's to the right team in their own conference, it's considered a quality loss. And I cannot stand the quality loss argument. Hate it. Quality wins matter. Quality losses should not. A loss is a loss is a loss. They should all be punished equally unless we're talking about a loss to like an FCS team or something like that. But the resume builders have to be there for the Big 12 conference. And, for example, Utah doesn't have one on their preseason schedule. There's not a way for Utah to build its resume from a national standpoint on the preseason schedule. UCLA is not thought of highly enough. Wyoming is dangerous without being thought of. So it's the opposite for Utah.
Yeah, the only chance is you beat UCLA, and then UCLA has a surprisingly good year. That's the only chance for for the non-conference resume to be built.
I will say this, though, and this will be my last point on the preseason coaches poll. That, again, is not worth anything. It's not even worth the paper it's printed on because they no longer print these things on paper.
When the AP poll is the preseason poll that gets any shine anyway. So this is the poll that really doesn't matter to people very much.
They probably will have a lot of similarities, the AP and the coaches poll, but if you're a Utah fan who's been paying attention to the Kyle Whittingham era of Utah football, this is actually the perfect spot to be. BYU and Kalani Sitake are in a great spot as well, but for Utah, my favorite seasons of Utah football, your favorite seasons of Utah football, has had Utah ranked 21 or lower in the preseason, and there's absolutely no mobility upward from there until they're 4-0. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh, and coming in now at number 20 is 4-0 Utah. Coming in now at number 22 is 4-0 Utah. And that's when you start to build this team. This is every great season of Utah football history, save that rough Pac-12 championship year. Started rough, ended great. All the other great Utah football seasons have been like, no one's talking about you, no one's talking about you, no one's talking about you. Wait a second. What are these Utes up to? Oh, now they're 6-0. Oh, hello. Okay, now they're 7-1. Hey, still a really good team. What do we have here with this Utah team? So I know that what happened in past years doesn't technically matter to what happened this year, but I will never feel that way because I'm a superstitious person. Oh, man, someone just got hit in the inside of the bicep. Hit by pitch in the Little League World Series. Ouch.
Storming the mountain? No, he did not.
Oh, can't
but
do it.
But he is smarting.
Get the camera off him. Don't show the kid crying on TV, man. Not cool.
That looks like Texas East player, maybe?
Oh, here comes big burly Oklahoma catcher to tell him sorry for I didn't do it. It was the pitcher.
I swear I didn't put the bean sign down. I swear.
That is the great Hambino just right there. Oh, man. All right. I take back everything bad I said about the Little League World Series. Got to take a quick one here. Sean O'Connell Show continues next on ESPN 700, 92.1 FM. Welcome back to the Sean O'Connell Show, creeping closer to the end of today's show. Man, it goes by quick. Time flies when you're having fun. We do have some Simple Plan tickets to give away at the end of the show. Make sure you're listening in about 12 minutes when I ask the trivia question to give away Simple Plan tickets. They're at America First Field on August 16th, so that's coming up quick. All right, at the risk of sounding double negative about what's going on with the perception in the Big 12 Conference right now, I got to update you on this. Iowa State and their head football coach, Matt Campbell, have finalized a contract extension that keeps him at Iowa State through 2032. Matt Campbell is he's becoming for Iowa State what Kyle Whittingham has been for the University of Utah. That's worth noting. He likes it in Ames. He has had opportunities to at least interview other places, and Matt Campbell continues to show his dedication to Cyclone football. I've actually spent an inordinate amount of time in Iowa and never been to Ames, I don't think. My parents are both from Iowa, so I've been to Iowa every year of my life. And I don't think I've ever been to Ames. So I can't tell you exactly what Ames is like. Iowa is good living.
Any Iowa Hawkeyes fans are like, oh, yeah, that's right. See, even the guy who has family from there doesn't even want to go to Ames.
Well, I don't know that I have ever had reason.
You're now an Iowa fan favorite here in Utah.
Now all the Hawkeyes fans that are listening are happy. Look, $5 million a year is the new salary. It's $1 million raise for Matt Campbell. Here's my issue with the contract. And again, I'm not trying to be sour grapes and negative about everything that's associated with this conference, but he decided to take a discount. Matt Campbell said, I'll take $5 million a year, which is a hell of a living, especially in Ames, Iowa, but said, instead of maximizing my own contract value, having my agent hold the school over the fire in order to keep me here, I'm going to take $5 million a year, nice round figure, and we're going to demand that what I could have asked for be added back to my assistant coach's salary pool, and more importantly, more salient in today's modern college football world, be reserved for NIL/revenue sharing distributions. So Matt Campbell, instead of saying, give me $7 million a year, said that extra $1 million or $2 million that I could have asked for, you just have to tell me, all right, instead we will spend that on your assistants and we will spend that on NIL/revenue sharing.
Assistant coaches and players. Yeah.
Look, it's a great move for the coach to add himself, to surround himself with success. The reason I don't like it is because of the perception. You're telling at Iowa State, for some people, is one of the powers of the Big 12 Conference. I don't know where those people are, but for some people, they're like, that's a team.
I mean, runners up last year, and they are returning a lot of players to the important positions.
And Rocco Becht is
he's one of those guys.
He's one of the best players in the conference, right? So there are people who look at Iowa State and say, hey, they might be that team this year. They did make an appearance that Utah did not in the preseason coaches poll, et cetera. But Iowa State being one of those teams that's not – Iowa State is not Cincinnati. They're not Houston. Iowa State is not in that conversation with West Virginia down toward the bottom of the league. Iowa State is in the Kansas State, Utah, Texas Tech conversation. And your head coach, right before the season starts, is announcing an extension, but I'm not going to take all the money I could take because I know the school needs a discount in order to provide the rest of the resources that I need. That's something that if you're recruiting against the Big 12, and I'm not talking about players now. I am talking about players, but I'm also talking about assistant coaches.
Yeah.
Right? Like, your ceiling at a place like that is $5 million a year. Your ceiling at a place over here in our neck of the woods is $13 million a year. Your ceiling there is, okay, I'll take a discount in order to stay here, It should be the other way. We love you. We know that Ames is not everyone's cup of tea. We're going to overpay you to stay in Ames. Instead, it's the opposite. Instead, it's Matt Campbell, who by all accounts is a top 25 coach at the very least in the country, right? We're going to pay you, but this is the agreement, okay? Because if you want your assistants to be what you hope they are, and if you want your players to be what you hope they are, there's got to be a little bit of give and take here. It's that battle that you have to fight in the Big 12. And I guess I should be applauding Iowa State for fighting it, but just please don't make stuff like this public. Please.
Yeah, I think it's admirable, and it's a very creative way to get more money into your NIL collectives, into, hey, this is definitely money that you can put in your revenue sharing budget for the school. But it's like, and schools in the Big 12 in particular, some schools in the ACC, they need those creative solutions. So it's a good thing that Iowa State and Matt Campbell are thinking this creatively. But you're right, like it's a double-edged sword, because it also comes with a bit of a ding, maybe more than a bit of a ding perception-wise nationally, because it's like in Alabama we can do both. You can make a bunch of money, and you don't have to sacrifice any of your salary, and we still have plenty to pay players.
You know what's a much better thing to do here? You say Matt Campbell's making $7 million a year, and then Matt Campbell very quietly, with a bunch of NDAs locking up everything,
gives $2 million.
Gives $2 million back. If he's willing to do that, which he's willing to here.
Why do you got to put in the press release?
Like, yeah. I just don't. I mean, would I be shocked to learn that Kyle Whittingham or Kalani Sitake were just like, man, I need money for players. Where can that money come from? All right, fine. I've been making $6 million a year. I don't need all of that. I've got my house has been paid off for a long time. My kids' house has been paid off for a long time.
Kids are in
good.
College, whatever.
Let's do this. I get a discount on tuition anyway. Like, here's my money. I'm giving it back, all right? And you get to do what I tell you to do with it, collective, or what I tell you to do with it, revenue sharing, whatever. I wouldn't be shocked if we had heard that from either place.
Yeah.
But guess what? I would be gnashing my teeth and headbutting the wall if we got an announcement that Kyle Whittingham is taking a pay cut so that the University of Utah can participate fully in the revenue sharing program of the minimum or the maximum of $20.5 million. I would lose my mind, because it gives this perception of poverty that you cannot afford. I know that's ironic. You can't afford the perception of poverty. You can't. Like, you have to pretend. And as much as I hate that whole, like, it's a very state of Utah thing, the whole keeping up with the Joneses, you got the big house, you got the big car, you're dangling by a thread every month, barely able to make ends meet.
But hey, you look good.
But it looks good. I hate that. But for the universities, especially these Power 4, these Big 12 universities, you damn well better pretend if you have to pretend. And I don't think either place has to pretend. I think at Utah and BYU, you're fine, and you don't have to do this. But, man, what a bummer it is for Iowa State. As you mentioned, they had a really good year last year. Hey, guys, awesome year. We're rewarding our coach by giving him kind of a discounted contract. That helps us. That is dumb.
Here's a counterpoint to not making it public. In today's day and age, with the Pete Thamels and the Brett McMurphys and these national insiders, that, like, college football has national insiders just like Adam Schefter and Shams Charania, NBA and NFL, right? Jeff Pass and MLB.
Sure. That
find stuff out. Uh-huh. So maybe it becomes public anyway. But I'm not. I think that there's a way. I think that it's less. They find less out at the college level than those other guys do in the pros. So maybe you can convince yourself, if you're Kyle Whittingham, if we're using Utah and BYU as an example, Kyle Whittingham, Kalani Sitake, that, hey, I can discreetly give part of my salary to this NIL collective, and then it doesn't look this. We get more money they get more money to help pay players that we need, and our program doesn't look like it's poor. But these guys have sources everywhere. They find out things like that all the time. So that's maybe the counterpoint that, hey, even if you try to keep it secret, maybe it gets public anyway.
Counterpoint to your counterpoint.
All right.
These guys, like you're talking about, these National College Football Insiders, while they are they're Big J journalists. They're real Big J journalists, right?
Sources at just about every school.
If it came down to it, like, hey, why would you do this? Why are you donating $1 million of your salary back? And you pulled that person aside and you said, well, because the other option was they don't pay it to me so that we can keep up with the Joneses. So how about you just report that I am giving back because I believe that the student athlete deserves more. Not that we can't afford it, but I believe the student athlete deserves as much as we can get, right? And that's a positive spin, and those guys they're not in the business of undercut. They're not cutting Iowa State's legs out, right? Like, would they find the truth? Yeah, probably, maybe. And if they did, they'd give you an opportunity to comment, and if you're Matt Campbell, you say, hey, Dennis Dodd, do me a solid here and report that I just have a strong belief that our student athletes are hardworking and deserve. I want to make sure it's not just my football team that in this revenue sharing is benefiting from the new way of things. I want these basketball and women's basketball players to get a little something too. I'm well taken care of, so I gave back $1 million. I mean, there's a dozen ways to fight this PR battle and win it, and they chose the one that is a loss, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Where it's just like, hey, guys, we look poor. What?
Look,
Why'd you do that?
I agree with you. I just pointing out there that maybe it gets public anyway out of your control. So you're just like, well, we're just gonna say it, but there's better ways to say it.
All right. Anyway, that's I'm not trying to be sour grapes on the Big 12 conference, but guys, fake it till you make it. Like, imagine this story comes across Brett Yormark's desk yesterday morning or Saturday morning, I guess is when it came out. That guy is the ultimate fake it till you make it guy. I promise you he's calling the athletic director at Iowa State. Just be like, could you pretend you're rich at least? Why did you do this? Do you know how many – I keep saying I'm bringing in $150 million here and another $150 million there. He's like, I don't know if that's going to happen. I'm just saying it so people think it. Why can't you do that? Well, because we're from Iowa. We're salt of the earth. All right?
We tell the truth.
We're too honest
Commissioner
in Iowa.
Yormark.
That's the problem here. Iowans are too honest.
And now we lost all of our Hawkeyes fans that loved you for a little bit.
Sorry, Hawkeye fans.
There you go.
You're in the Big Ten anyway. You don't get to be part of the conversation. All right. Last break. Is Spence here today?
He is. Yeah, he is here today, so he should be here for cross.
I miss Spence. We haven't seen each other.
I know. He was out all week last week. Scott Mitchell filled in. You were out the last couple of days, so you just missed each other.
Sean O'Connell Show, ESPN 700, 92.1 FM, proud part of Utah's ESPN Radio Network. Sean O'Connell Show wrapping up here. I've got 2 tickets to Simple Plan, August 16th at America First Field, where RSL plays their home games. If you could answer this trivia question, 877-353-0700. We were talking about the NFL Hall of Fame class. We were talking about who's eligible. We were talking about how you get yourself in. And we landed on, well, look, if John Lynch is in, our guy Eric Weddle needs to be in. How many career NFL interceptions did Eric Weddle have? 877-353-0700. I belabored that point aggressively when we were having that conversation about who gets in and who doesn't to the Pro Football Hall of Fame. Simple Plan tickets if you have the answer to that. Spence Checketts is back in the building, and it's good to see you, sir.
Hello, Sean. Great to be back. Nice job today running some errands, so caught a decent bit of the show. What did I miss outside of our new Big Willie sign, which makes the studio pop a little bit?
Today and every day, the show is brought to you by Big Willie's at 1717 South Main. We talked some NFL Hall of Fame stuff. We did another over-under, playing with some numbers for Utah football. Did you hear that one? Did you hear that part of the show?
I had to get out of the car to go into Harmon's as you were broaching that topic.
Yeah, it's a little offensive that you don't just pop the AirPods in and immediately go to the ESPN 700 app, but whatever.
Left the AirPods in Dallas. That's a true story. When I get to the airport, left my AirPods in the Uber I shared with you. I didn't realize until I got on the plane.
Oh, yeah. Well, I hope I didn't contribute to that.
You did not.
692.5 for Utah's leading receiver, yardage, not touchdowns. That'd be great, though.
Be a record.
692.5, which, how did I come to that number? That is the 10-year average of the top receiver at the University of Utah the last decade.
I hate to say this, I'm smashing the under.
Okay.
Couple reasons. Who's the guy?
Correct.
Reason one is who's the guy. Reason two is, if we're honest, Devin through the air last year was not necessarily dynamite. Coach Witt has talked about it a lot. I was listening to a lot of Camp Sound today, getting ready for the show today. Dual threat. Morgan Scalley talking about the advantages of his defense to be able to practice against a quarterback with a intentionally designed QB run game. So I'm not saying that I don't believe Devin can get it done with his arm, but P5 situation, G5 situation last year, his numbers in the throw game, as Kyle would say, weren't great. And I just don't know who these wide receivers are. So I'm smashing the under, and I'll hope for the over.
Just under 2,800 passing yards for Devin Dampier last year, 7.1 yards per completion, as we have talked about, 12 and 12 all the touchdowns and interceptions.
Not atrocious, but not great. And you hope with that O-line. And, again, I just go back to who the wide receivers are. It continues to be the one positional group where you ask, it's like, yeah, we got a bunch of new guys. Devin was talking about this himself on some of the practice sound that I was listening to today and then catching up last night. He's like, yeah, there are it's a new group, trying to get familiar with them. So just because of those dynamics, I'm inclined to smash the under.
All right. I like that. What's coming up on the drive?
You had a question for me, though, that if you don't ask me this question, see the way my mind works, Sean, it's a complicated, scary place. You know how there's the scene in The Office where Michael Scott and Pam are talking about something and she realizes he has to sing a lyric or else he's going to have a headache all day? That's me. So if you don't ask the question for the next 4 hours of radio, I'm going to be like, hey, what was Sean going to ask me? That's going to stick in the back of my head.
I think I know the answer to the question.
I'm a little nervous based off of how you started it right before we launched into the segment.
Well, how the thought process is going in my mind. I just got back from Atlantic City.
Very nice.
A lot of people from the New York City area do take trips down the shore.
Yes, they do.
And go to Atlantic City. And I was about to ask you, did the Spence Checketts family ever go and spend any time in AC?
Very much no.
Of course not.
We were going north, okay?
Yeah.
If anywhere we're talking Nantucket,
Yes.
we're going north. Atlantic City was certainly my parents would, I don't know what they would do in Atlantic City.
The place is an absolute dump.
I think I could have a good time, but it would be.
I don't know if you could, Spence.
Well, just get me on a cheap blackjack table and I'll throw some cards for a few hours.
Yeah.
But Dave and Deb Checketts, they're not throwing cards. They're not having cocktails. Atlantic City would not be their scene.
Yeah, it was. I've spent a lot of time there. We've done a bunch of shows there in the PFL during COVID. We did the COVID bubble there, and it was so I've spent way too much time there. And I thought, like, 2020, that was everyone's low point, right? It was it was economically stressful. It was difficult for everyone in the country. No way it could be worse than 2020. It's worse now. It's worse.
No, think Cape Cod, think Nantucket, think Hamptons, think North. Give respect to my friends in Jersey. The Checketts family was not frequently taking road trips to Atlantic City. I can promise you that.
Every once in a while, there's like a big concert or something at Boardwalk Hall. I thought maybe you'd slum it down there for a minute.
Well,
but no,
you don't have to say slum it.
I
I was waiting for him to land on something. Yeah.
Slum it is very much accurate. It's a dump.
Well, did you ever watch Jersey Shore on MTV?
I saw some Jersey Shore. Yeah, me and Jan Jorgensen when we lived together.
Okay.
We'd
Some
sit
GTL?
on we'd sit on the we'd sit on the love sack in the living room and watch some Jersey Shore.
Because I'll tell you this, I had friends that moved to our hometown from Jersey, and so on a couple of different occasions, I would frequent the Jersey Shore with them. And the reason I loved that show so much is it perfectly captured who those people are, all of them. Like, the 6 or 7 characters in the house, you expand that out to a couple million people. That is the Jersey Shore. That is Atlantic City. And it's phenomenally entertaining, but not necessarily a group or a place I'd like to spend a lot of time with.
So my sister-in-law, my brother's wife, is from Philadelphia, and her family had a shore house in a place called Ocean City, New Jersey.
Okay.
Which is
It's nice.
Lovely.
It is, yeah.
It's very nice. It's quiet. It's little antique shops. It's a dry county. Like, you can't sell alcohol there.
Oh, interesting.
It's it's just like, it's beautiful. It's very picturesque. And so my first experiences with the Jersey Shore, like actually visiting the Jersey Shore after having watched the TV show, was that Jersey Shore. And I was like, they got it wrong.
It's a much different Jersey Shore.
These people are just like polite and rich. And then I spent a bunch of time in Atlantic City. I'm like, oh, no, they got
there
it
it
right.
is. There's the situation. There's Pauly D with the blowout. Yeah.
And the best part about it is, and this will be my last thing, at age 60, they're still like that.
For sure.
Like, in Atlantic City is just populated with take Pauly D and The Situation and Vinny and age them 3 decades, and that's who's on the boardwalk in Atlantic City.
100%. I mean, it's great people watching. But yeah, you gotta be careful because you might find yourself in a sideways situation.
Oh, it's always great to see you.
Good
Spence.
to see you, Sean. Good to be back. James, good to see you.
Stay tuned for The Drive. Thanks for listening to the Sean O'Connell Show, brought to you every day by Big Willie's at 1717 South Main, Utah's #1 sports bar. Go check them out. Let's do it again tomorrow on ESPN 700 and 92.1